Okay, so last week we got started on a big mega list. So anyone that was here for last week's streams, you might remember this. We've done pretty well. We're not going to be actively working on this today. We're going to move on to the next thing. But if anybody has any more of these that will fit in here, feel free to suggest still, because I will be adding them when I look through the VOD after stream. I'll add any that you folks suggest, so I'm not going to discourage more suggestions, because there's been some really good ones and I don't want them to stop. And if anyone wants to have a closer look at that, it's in the ideas discussion. If you click this, it should take you straight to that Google Sheet page. Asriel, thank you so much for the 16 months sub. I appreciate it. Happy New Year to you as well. How was your Christmas and your holidays, Asriel? I hope it went well and you and the fam had a good one. Super busy with work today. New Year's slam, it seems. Most be quiet for now. Yes, I can imagine. First day back, isn't it, for most of you? Unless some of you went back before the new year. No shock there. But I hope work goes well and he's nice to you. Hopefully it's nice to you. I'll be rambling on while you lurk, folks, and Van. And if anyone wants to join in on the fun today, feel free to, because I've been excited about today's stream, because this whole big list, we sort of organise it. We'll see what the point of it is a bit more today in a minute, because what we're going to do is decide for the current NPCs in the game so far. Carol's basically done, but we've still got Nigel, Fiona, Violet. Maybe the fruits. I mean, the fruits aren't. I don't like saying they're not much as main characters as the others, because I want every NPC to be a main character in a way. Well, not exactly a main character, but I want them to have purpose. I don't want any of them to be pointless. And the fruits are actually quite key, so I'd say they probably are. But we'll focus on the actual characters like Nigel, Fiona and Violet first, and Carol of course. And we're gonna look through this big mega list and decide which ones are really fitting for them. And we're gonna start building getting an idea of their character arcs and how it can shape, because this is stuff we really should be knowing in advance before writing their scenes. I've started realising as we were doing the second and third drafts of our dialogue trees, that we need to start understanding them better as characters so we can make the scenes as good as possible. Thank you for the hype, Rex. Sorry I'm late on the hype. No worries. Late is better than never, I say. I'll mainly in the background. Awesome. I can be your background noise for the day. I certainly won't complain. Alright, so somebody in last stream said something really interesting actually. They said that a quest designer from CD Projekt Red said that when they make a quest, it's always usually really awful at first, and then they remake it over and over until it's great. And I thought that was quite inspiring, because we're sort of doing that at the moment as well. I've spent the last few weeks really looking thoroughly into things, making it as good as possible. I feel like the second half of 2020 was about that a lot, not just with the story, but I redid the whole map. I did all the maps again in Tiled as well. I made the maps better than how they were before. So it's all been kind of about making what we already did better. And I'm a first part, and I think it's going to pay off in the long run to make sure it's super good. We want to release something good at the end of the day, not something mediocre, so it's worth it. It's worth the extra time and effort. So we are going to focus on building a character arc today, and there is a sort of formula we're following with this, which you'll see in a sec. And it's going to just make things better. So, beliefs, desires, fears, reasons they're dissatisfied, and agendas and motives basically. I've put emojis with them now so you can kind of see what they are a bit better. Because some people, I mean, it was a kind of a bit confusing knowing the difference between a fear and a dissatisfaction. But, you know, fear, there we go, that's the difference. A big scary face like that is different to that face. I think that sums it up just about perfectly. But we got loads, like we've got like 200, 300 beliefs, and I've put an opposite with every single one. But these beliefs are usually flawed beliefs, by the way, and these are kind of really the core of a character arc. The beliefs, I think, now the really key thing. I've been reading some articles as well, folks. I've been like reading, watching so many things about character development, and this is actually the book that is everything to what I've been following with this. So I don't actually own the book, but I've read tons about it, and read a load of reviews and articles and blogs about it. So if you're interested in making good stories, I recommend looking into it, because it's opened my eyes to a lot of things. And yeah, more articles here. So, oops, you've seen the spoilers. I'll get it up in a minute. And hi, Dare, how are you doing? I was going to say your name, and I was like, I'm going to butcher that name completely. Oi, I can call you Oi, yeah. I like the word Oi, or Oid. That's it, I've got it now. Sometimes I just have to have a proper look before I know how to pronounce somebody's name. I do it all the time. Welcome to the stream. And what about the lie? Generally for a character arc, there is some lie or misconception that the character has to overcome to grow. Exactly. So that's what this says here. Let's zoom in and you'll see sexy. The lie. There it is. So the belief is actually the lie. It's just another way of wording it. And that is what the belief is. It's a flawed belief, usually a lie, and a flawed world outlook. You know, we could go on and on. We could make a big list of ways to word it, but I think the lie is a really good way of summing it up. So this is what we're going to look at today. The last few hours of the weekend, Sunday, I was working on this. I was getting it all looking pretty for us. We started a bit on this last stream, but it was very plain, and it's more exciting now. So let's use Carol as an example, because we've done her. I've also got Nigel and Fiona here, but they're not filled in yet. They're just templates at the moment. But Carol's is filled in because we've been working on her a lot, and we kind of probably know her the best out of all our characters, and she's the first character we meet in the game. So I've got them in here of order of when they appear. So Carol's the first one we meet, then Nigel, then Fiona, and then we'll put Violet next as our next one, because she's the fourth person we meet. But yeah, let's just have a look through it and see what we've filled in. And this is up for being edited and amended over time, because really we're doing this so we can understand Carol as best as possible and shape her arc amazingly, so she becomes an amazing character, and the same for the others as well. So let's catch up with chat first, and then we'll get into it. Wait, you said that they were mostly flawed beliefs, so that answers my question. Yeah, for sure. But that what you say, Zexy, is absolutely it. It's about the character realising that their belief is actually a lie, and whatever is the opposite of that belief, that flawed belief, that lie, is kind of the theme and moral of their story. And whether some actually come to that conclusion before some characters might be so narcissistic that they might never realise, but you never know. I think it's a really good way of showing a character arc. And how many pixels are your sprites' height? Oh gosh, I can't remember the exact number, to be honest. I know that the originals, the defaults, are 48 by 48, but I recently made them taller. I don't know the exact number, but I'd say they're about double the size, maybe. Oh gosh, I don't know. I'd have to look. I don't have a memory as good as that, sadly. But it's been a while since I've looked at the sprites because we've been focusing on the character stuff, so one day we'll look at them again. Hi Zinni, how you doing? I'm not here, but I totally was here. I like that emote, that is super cute. What an adorable emote. Welcome to the stream, Zinni. And should I say tall? Are they people? They are tall, aren't they? They are people. They've got people's faces, haven't they? They have. They're certainly not objects. That's for sure. Okay, everybody. Let's look into this. Okay, so I've started the first one off with the past thing, and this is something we're not going to know for every character instantly. We'll probably just have it as a blank for a while. We'll zoom in a bit more until we've like filled in the other things. But Carol's we decided a month or two ago, so I popped hers in. We couldn't write this backstory for Carol until we understood these other things. And once we kind of understand these, it's easier to come up with a gripping backstory. So this is Carol's. Now this is just one event in her past. I'm all for making multiple past events, you know. Sometimes you need to do a series of past events to really kind of show how they became the person they are now with these beliefs, desires and fears, you know, what exactly shaped them. You can't always do that in just one flashback. So, you know, you never know, she could have more, and encourage that because it's Carol the Barrel, she's the MVP. So yes, and then we've got the belief here, what we were talking about, just the lie, the flawed world outlook that they believe. You know, it's usually always wrong and flawed, because without it if it wasn't wrong, there'd be no point in a character arc, right? If they already knew everything anyway. So if we look through our list, for example, all of these, I think every single one in some way is flawed, you know. So even the opposite of it is flawed as well, because there's always a lesson to learn. So the belief is always influenced by their past, so whatever is filled in here has to make sense with what the event in the past was, so because it's formed the person they are with the thoughts and the misconceptions that they have. And then we've got the desire here, which was the second part of our mega list, and that is influenced by the belief. It's influenced by the lie, the belief. And it's what they want and what drives the story. So really, yeah, the desire is what drives the story. Like every story has a character that wants something, right? Desires are basically goals as well. So anything, you know, at all, if we look through the list here, these are like exactly what desires are, just normal goals. Whether they're external or internal, could be either. But I definitely am partial to internal stuff, because I think it gets us more attached and invested when it can be more internal. A series of past events also gives us a better idea if the spell timeline needs to be adjusted. Yeah, and we have a timeline for the barrels on the Lore Bible already, and I'm all for adding more this and more to that timeline as we flesh their history out a bit. But there's got to be more, because I adore this flashback. I think it's tragic, and there's a real juxtaposition in it as well, with it being a happy celebration with something really dark happening in this happy celebration, and the ignorance of the humans that are doing these things to the barrels, because they actually don't know the barrels are alive. But of course Carol isn't thinking about that. She just cares about the fact that her parents have been killed. She's not going to make excuses for the humans and be like, oh, but they didn't know that there were real barrels. She's just angry. And what I have done is colour code stuff as well. So you might notice that some of the sentences are red, some are blue, some are orange. The reason why I've done that is because I've made a list of current behaviours that Carol has here, like ways that she acts today in the present day in the story. These are very Carol, all of these, and I've colour coded them so we can connect each behaviour with these things. That'll really help with consistency, and to give us a reason for why they're behaving like that, right? So with this bit, the red one, I've put that as generally treating others with hostility, because Carol does. She's a very angry and hostile person, and because of how she felt at the end of this flashback, to me it makes sense why she'd be that person, because you would be so angry, right? But there's definitely other personality traits that flashback doesn't exactly cover. For example, I'd love to know what developed her arrogance, even what made her bossy, maybe even what made her decide calling humans flashbacks, or anything like that at all. Some of these things here, like being impatient, which is the one I've made orange, shows her impatience in the fact that she's desperate to find her family, because Carol's a very impatient person as well as bossy, and things like the fact that she's just so desperate to find her family is what's the root of her impatience right now, because time's running out. They could be killed if she doesn't find them in time. She knows from her past that they're vulnerable. They're a vulnerable group of people. So she just thinks, I've got to find them before something happens to them, like something happened to my parents. That's what Carol could be thinking. And another thing about Carol is that she's very arrogant, and I kind of felt that the reason she's arrogant is to make up for her disadvantages. Well, their disadvantages as barrels in general, and the fact that they're not very strong or able to defend themselves very well. So she's very aware of the fact that humans, flashbacks, have more advantages than barrels and can defend themselves and fight better, and that's a reason why she wants you to protect her, because she feels she'll be in a better position. That's Carol's agenda and her solution to her fear. So all these connect one after the other. The belief is influenced by the backstory, the desire is influenced by the belief, and the fear is the obstacle in the way of the desire, basically. And that is also greatly sparked by the events in the past as well. And the reason they're dissatisfied is also influenced by their fear, and it keeps them stuck from reaching their desire. And that is like the solution to all their problems, I guess. The fact that you appear, you cross paths with Carol, and she's like, finally, I've got someone that can assist me and protect me while I search for my family. And that's green, because Carol's bossy. So she's like, yes. This section here is just like some ideas for potential ways to create really tense plot points for Carol. So I was thinking of maybe listing some ideas. I mean, one could be, we'll think of some in a sec, but let's catch up with chat first. And in the belief isn't wrong, then it's going to be a flat character arc, which does have its uses, but flat character arcs are best used for minor characters. They're really bad for main characters, because like you said, what's the point? I can tell that Zexy's been reading the same stuff that I have. You know what you're talking about, Alexi, because I was reading about in these articles, like I said, the last couple of weeks I've just been reading all this stuff, and flat character arcs were mentioned. And I'm not a fan of flat character arcs, because I like to I'm very into complex and layered characters. Even minor characters, I want to have layers to them as well, which is kind of ambitious, maybe overly ambitious, because then it's a lot of extra work, right? But like I said, I want even the fruits and other characters that we meet to have to feel real and like real living people. But we'll see we'll experiment. At the end of the day, we've still only got a handful of characters in the game so far. When we do this sort of stuff, we're only going to focus on the ones that we've met in game, which is why the community characters that aren't in the episode 1 yet, we're not focusing on them because it'd be too much work for us at this point in time, and it's not really relevant. So we're focusing on the ones that enter the game one by one. So we'll probably keep this stock as a big massive character art list as we add characters to the game, and we'll use this template as we write about them. And yes, I'm a big fan of the character arcs, that's for sure. In some way or another, I think every character should have a lesson that they, like a purpose to the story that's going to teach you something in some way, like some moral lesson or theme behind it, even if it's really small. But otherwise, what's the point, as we say? I'd have assumed that she was arrogant because she had to grow up with Meryl, and she was definitely smarter and better than her sister. That's another thing too. You see, with things like this, there could be many reasons what's formed them into the person they are. That was just the first thing that came into my head, like it making up for their lack of being able. But like we said, that makes sense too, and that could work too. And what I want to do today as we go through these, because we're going to do Nigel and Fiona and maybe Violet as well, is like really think about this and why there could be this sort of person, and like ask ourselves these questions, like or maybe they're like it because of this, or maybe they're like it because of that. So what you're saying, Zexy, is ideal, really. This is what we want today. To just really look at the characters and think what's making them this way. Because what we've been focusing on the last few weeks has been improving scene main quest 1 and 2 and the scenes in those quests. And I feel like it's the perfect time to pause on that and actually get to understand the characters a bit better. And then we can carry on with improving that dialogue and go over it all, and then we'll know them like the back of our hands, and we'll be like, yes, Fiona should say this instead. Because the current dialogue is not perfect at all. It's been pointed out from a couple of you guys, and I've seen myself as well, that Fiona's behaving a bit inconsistently. For example, she's being nice to Rose and she's giving her a name, and Fiona would not do that. Not the Fiona that we've made anyway. And the reason it's like that is because we haven't updated it for like a year and a half, that Fiona dialogue. There was so much that wasn't set in stone at the point that original dialogue was made, because it was one of the very first scenes we made for the game in the earlier streams. So there really does need to be a slight overhaul of that whole cabin scene with Fiona and Violet in particular. And I was looking at that scene and I was thinking, we need to understand Fiona better. We need to really learn about that character, and I feel like this is an opportunity to do that. We can fill in for Nigel and Fiona in a similar way we've done about Caroline. We'll like really figure stuff out about them, because Fiona and Nigel so far are they're not very in depth. They've got traits. We know that Fiona's a spunky little girl who likes adventure, and we know that Nigel's very much the opposite of his sister, that he's a more timid and overly polite and well-mannered guy. So they're very different, but that's all we really know about them, other than the fact that they're innkeepers. Fiona's actually the innkeeper and Nigel's just a worker for her, and that they've had potential dealings with the fruits, because Fiona was the one that gave the quest for Violet to be sacrificed to the fruits. So there's some kind of connection there with them. So we know those things, but not really much else. We also know there was a massacre in Lakefall, and their ancestors, possibly their parents, grandparents, were the ones that were killed in that massacre. So there's kind of a potential tragic backstory involving potentially their parents as well. But there's still so much more to do with them, and we need to really understand them so that we're able to make their dialogue the best it can be. And although all this stuff here is internal and in their subconscious, they're not going to exactly spell it out like in one scene. A lot of it's stuff they'll keep to themselves. But it's something that we as the writers need to understand so that what they say is consistent with these things. And for Carol and others that will be in multiple episodes, you might want 2 or 3 beliefs. One for a smaller episode-long arc that gets resolved, and then a longer arc that lasts and keeps them relevant after their story's done. Yeah, because with series, things have to be handled a little bit differently to if it was just one game or one story. It's the same with the 3-act structure, right? Because this is a series, it's like thinking, how will we deal with that traditional 3-act structure? Because in some way we have to follow it so we can make a great story. Initially I was thinking maybe, well, at least with the 3-act story structure, we could treat each episode as its own 3-act story structure, but we could also see all the saga as a whole as a 3-act structure as well. Because I read somewhere that when it comes to things like that, the structures, and there's lots of mini ones in as well. Like even scenes themselves are a 3-act structure to a certain degree. So there's always one big one, and then there's lots of mini ones. And I guess character arcs could be similar, because I think one thing I read, let me try and remember what it said exactly, but I might have to reread it again. It said something along the lines of, when it comes to the beliefs and things like that, they could definitely have a few or more. They don't need to have just one. But the one thing that's probably important is the beliefs are at least connected and linked to the same theme and message that character's story is about. So, for example, with Carol, it's all about exclusion, right? She feels excluded from society. I think that kind of sums up Carol's misbelief lie best. She feels excluded from society, and the only place she can belong is with her own kind, barrel kind, object kind, or whoever. So any other beliefs that we come up with for Carol, for example, it would make sense if they were linked to that theme. And I'm sure there's so many different beliefs that we could come up with that link with that whole message and that whole moral behind being excluded from society. Because what Carol thinks in episode 1 might be different to how she thinks in episode 2 and onwards, and there's going to be a change, she's going to evolve slowly over the course of the series. And we'll probably look at because there was a graph I had actually, pardon me, there was a graph showing the character arc and how it changes on the graph over the course of the story, the dips and the rises. So I want to look at that again. And the tension has to be at all the right times, really, because otherwise the audience will switch off. Every piece of media to some degree does follow that same structure. Not saying that some haven't gone different before, I'm sure they have, and sometimes that might work, but it's sometimes a good idea to go with what science proves is right as well. And so act structure tends to be academic theory. Structure is generally used to analyse something after it's been written. You could try to write a 3-act game. I argue, since you don't have a runtime constraint, it would be better to just make what you make and let it be whatever structure it moulds to naturally, 2, 3 or 5, etc. Yeah. So I'm kind of seeing it as I definitely want to follow the structure to a certain point. because it's nice having a guide. It's something to go off rather than feel it's just random, it makes no sense and things are just happening. I've kind of slowly become sceptical of the whole improvise as we go along theory as time has gone on, because sometimes you end up with a convoluted or random or nonsense story otherwise. So structure is important, and I've kind of said 6 episodes is what I'm aiming for the series. We did a world map. Have we still got that world map? I need to get that somewhere in an easy position. And hi, Dark Stained Angel. I need to put that somewhere where I can get access to it easier. But a couple of months ago, it was October maybe, September, October time. Maybe, can't remember the exact date. We did a world map. It was very rough, very messy, but we kind of planned what all the biomes and different, like what the world would look like very roughly, and then I kind of circled around what places would be in each episode. And episode 1 is very it's very small, the area, Everbloom Forest, it's just one area for episode 1. But as we go on, episode 2 is going to expand a bit. We're going to go to the farmlands and to the highlands. The highlands will be where the capital is, and the scope will slowly expand. We'll probably visit like more than just one place in episode 2 and onwards. And the plan we had worked quite well, and 6 episodes felt like a nice number because it's even and it kind of would fit nicely in the 3-act structure and work. But I do think for sure each episode as a whole should have its own. Also I kind of want to see the whole thing as one as well, but we'll see, because I'm still doing a lot of learning on that. It's a very complex thing. It's definitely not something you can learn overnight. Don't forget, this time last year I thought that improvisation was the way to go. I'm learning I'm learning otherwise. How you doing now, Dark? I hope you're well. I hope you're having a good week so far. Structure is something I 100% agree with, but if you have time, maybe look into 2-act and 5-act structures, just so you have that in your back pocket. Oh yeah, I intend to learn a number of techniques, and then myself and the rest of us can potentially figure out what is best for what we're trying to do here. It's definitely a bit tougher when it comes to making a series than it would be if it was just one story. So if you've got any links at all, feel free to drop them in the Discord though, because I really am very keen on absorbing the knowledge lately. I've been doing a lot of reading. I've read a lot about the 3-act structure, but I haven't seen many variations of it yet. I've only seen the traditional one, so I would like to see alternatives as well, and we'll see what works. Definitely could be cool. Doing great. Today is my Friday at work, and I am off the next 5 days, so nice little relaxation time coming up. 5-day holiday, that's really nice. That's nice for sure. Lots of people are back to the normal life now that the Christmas and New Year period is over, so I'm happy for you that you get a holiday now. Alright, so actually do have some links. I'll pop it in after stream. Yeah, feel free to pop them in whatever the relevant channel is, maybe Ideas Discussion channel. That tends to be the general one. Okay, folks, so yeah, that's Carol's current belief. Now, as we say, there could be mini beliefs, or even, I see it as there could be one key belief and maybe mini beliefs coming off that key belief, perhaps. But there's also the, what we said earlier about having different beliefs in different episodes. But as long as they link and connect and it makes sense, that evolution makes sense, then I think it'll be fine. What we wouldn't want is the beliefs to be totally disconnected, and it'd be like, so why is Carol suddenly like that? Main thing is it's all gotta make sense and be influenced with each of these things and the events that happen, because this current belief is influenced by the past, but then the present day could influence beliefs as well. Like what happens in the game in episode 1 might further make that current belief she has change a little bit because of things, new people she's met and different things that have happened, because that she'll have more, that the present day stuff will be considered the backstory as the story evolves. Like by the time we're in episode 4, for example, what happened in episode 1 is like real, it's just ages ago by then, and that becomes the backstory. So yeah, for sure it could evolve. Influenced by the lie they believe, and yeah, that's it. I think hopefully you can see this, folks. I can see that the stream's cutting it off a bit, so I'm gonna, there we go. If I do that, you can see it. Okay. If you watch the stream in 1080p, I think it'd be a lot easier to read. But hopefully you can make it out. Okay. Yeah, in this section here, I don't think we talked about this bit yet. This is the truth, the lesson and the moral, the theme. And this always is generally the opposite of the lie they believe. So what's here, Carol's flawed world outlook, has been turned around in this section, and it says the opposite. And that is kind of what the character arc is, the journey for them to go from believing that to go from believing that. So what a journey that would be, right? And you know, it would kind of be very premature if she started feeling that in episode 1. That to me is something she's not gonna start realizing till at least the end of mid game or late game. And that all depends on how you shape your hero morally as well, because if you go for being an evil hero, she's certainly not going to think that. You're probably going to forever cement this idea into Carol's head if you decide to be an evil hero. So some character arcs might not always end positively, you know, you've kind of ruined. You've had a bad influence on the character with the hero you've become, and it stops that character from realising and growing. So that's something to consider as well, because Raindrop Chronicles is a story where you as the protagonist is shapeable by you as the player. So different personalities of different heroes will affect NPCs differently. That is obvious. Carol isn't going to act the same way with an evil hero or a cowardly hero or a foolish hero as she would with another kind of hero that was good or wise. So that just adds an extra layer of complexity too. But that's all things that we can talk about when we actually start doing the game choices and the different paths, and we talk about different things that are going to happen in the choices that you make. That will become clearer then. But I think it will be smart to think about how a character arc could conclude with a good and a bad hero. I think it'd be cool to think about that as well at some point. But for now, we'll just see it as like the general, like positive truth and character arc ending. But we can always expand on that with different outcomes afterwards, for sure. Okay, so Carol's done. So the section I haven't filled in yet is how to raise the stakes. I might briefly add a couple of ideas to that in a sec, but I do want to move on to Nigel very soon. Raising the stakes, I feel like for that's purely ideas for plot points, you know, and for tension and excitement and things that can challenge a character. So I read that an easy way to raise the stakes is really bringing those fears in, so that the stress levels of the characters raise. So I will be unable to defend myself from cruel fleshbags, and they will put my life in danger and stop me from finding my family. So an obvious one, like the most obvious way to raise the stakes, I suppose, would be to make Carol come close to finding the family, but then take it completely away from her, or make her believe she's about to find her family, but she's totally like not gonna find them. To get her hopes up and then crush them, right? That's one way. Carol thinks she has found her family, or Carol comes close to finding her family, but then has it taken away from her. So that's one. Now, there could be absolutely loads hidden in here, but fears, I think, is probably the easiest way to do it. So the other one is I will be unable to defend myself. It's like actually letting them experience that fear in the game, and because we all care about the character, or we should care about the character, that's going to emotionally affect us as the player and the audience as well, because we don't want them to have their fear happen. I will be unable to defend myself from cruel fleshbags, and they will put my life in danger. So that one could be someone nearly kills Carol, which we kind of already did right at the start of the game, right? Let's get that one in first, but that could happen again and again and again if we wanted it to. A human comes close to killing Carol. To smashing up Carol and killing her. So that's one way to raise the stakes as well, which we already did. It's the first scene. When we expanded on the scene, I decided I really wanted to show how high the stakes were in Raindrop Chronicles, so I made it the first choice of the game to get Carol killed by an NPC that catches them talking in Lakeful. And you get the choice to either like rat her out and be like, yeah, there's a living barrel here, or you can say nothing. You know, you can do either, but whatever happens, Carol isn't gonna die, obviously, because it's too early in the game for her to die, and it would ruin the story if she wasn't around. Would be a bit of a plot hole. Carol wasn't here, but you know, we're gonna think for a moment as the audience that she will get smashed up. I mean, we barely know her at this point in time, so we're probably not going to really care much that she's about to get smashed up because we've just met her, but it's intense enough to still show how like serious this game is with when it comes to its choices. It doesn't hold back. But that NPC that nearly does this does get interrupted, and Carol's okay. So, but it kind of isn't a bit of, it's a very like intense way of introducing an NPC as well. And you know, the goal was to get the player really into the game, because we don't, as a story writer and a game developer, you don't want people putting your game down, right, or turning it off. So you want to kind of just do something very early on in the opening scene that's going to make you think, oh yeah, I'm going to carry on playing this. It's kind of what it's the hook. The hook is the thing they call it as well. Define Dreams, Sal, how are you doing? Happy New Year to you as well. How are things? How was Pokemon the other day? I dropped everybody off here to Define Dreams' stream on Friday, was it? I think it was Friday. And I had to rush off for my din-dins, but I hope the stream went well. And have Carol get kidnapped or just cornered and threatened in a town to raise play her fear of being unable to defend herself. Awesome. So folks, if you want to suggest any ways to raise the stakes, feel free to join in like Zexy has here, because we're making a list here. And in fact, this will probably be easier to read if we make a list like this. So, should we bullet point these? Where's the ruler? Show ruler, because we need that, because I want it to be. But whatever the stakes are, they ideally do have to connect with what we're writing here. So having it be the fear, having it be something that really makes Carol face her fears, or even face why she's dissatisfied, or something that's like literally the opposite of her desire, or something that makes her realise her false beliefs are actually real. Things like that are cool ways of raising the stakes. Even having her potentially replay a deja vu moment of her past, the tragic flashback, have it happen again but in a different way. That'd be another way to raise the stakes. So it's kind of like looking at all of these things, all of these internal thoughts going on in Carol's head involving her past, her beliefs, her desires, her fears, and making her like have to face them. It's powerful, and I really definitely am keen on making a whole list of ways we can raise the stakes for each character that we add to this character art list. And we can, you know, potentially it'd be a really cool way. It'll help us think of some plot points, you know, and quest ideas and scenes, so it's fun. Now let's catch up with chat before we add those stakes to Carol's list, and then we'll move on to Nigel, folks. And it's going to be really fun doing Nigel and Fiona and Violet, because we haven't done them in anywhere close to as much depth as we have Carol. So the plan is to look through this list together and assign the appropriate beliefs, desires, fear, etc. to each of these characters, with them making sense, of course, and influencing one another like Carol's do. So this second instance of Carol being threatened, have Rose step in to protect her, so start bridging the gap between them and put them on better terms by the next story. Be awesome. So I'll get those in a sec, Zexy. Going to catch up with chat as well. So hello, I'm Sal. I'm watching someone make an episode at 2D Fantasy RPG with their Twitch community. I hang out with them and just help shape the story, characters, dialogue, see the world. Lol. Yeah, I think that's exactly what my bio about me section says, doesn't it? You've copied and pasted it. Lol. LOL, very funny. And yeah, Rose, I meant to thank you the other day for the lovely raid, but we aren't friends on Discord, so I just figured I would wait until now. Yeah, no worries. I think I actually, I stopped, I made it impossible for people to contact me through Discord, and I think I've only got like a very small friends list now, because I was getting a lot of stuff I didn't want to have to deal with on there. So, I was like, yeah, screw it. Basically what it came down to was one of our community members ended up getting very toxic with me in the DMs. Someone I actually really liked as well, but it didn't end well. So I was like, yeah, I can't be having this anymore. I've got a game to make. So I thought, yeah, I'm going to close my DMs now. But yes, no worries, Silent. You're a good friend of mine and Rex as well, so always like to pass the love to people who deserve it. Thank you greatly. Man, this game's really going to be something, but I'm more excited for the book about the history and development process. It's going to be like 1,000 pages long. Yeah, you could read my book that I release when the game's done, the ebook I'm going to make, or you can watch every single YouTube video ever in existence, which, you know, is that would be a real feat, considering there's about several hundred hours of VODs now. But I do have a YouTube channel, folks. So what I am doing, you might have noticed, some of you, I am actually naming the videos with specific titles now on my YouTube channel. Everything on YouTube is the VODs, the streams, by the way. I don't have time to do any edits, but I really like having that archive there of every single moment in the streams, because it shows the whole process, and I really like that. So one thing I did want to do was give a specific title to each video, to something that was talked about in the stream, so it's easier for you guys to find old streams better, and also people that are new to the community as well to find things, and keep things nice and easy. It's like how I try to limit the number of channels, discords I monitor, because it's so easy to fall. Yeah, it is. I've even deactivated my Twitter account because it's so distracting. I'm not going to have it deleted for good though. I will be returning before it gets deleted for good. I think I've got 30 days before everything gets removed, so I'll probably return in a couple of weeks, but I wanted a couple of weeks off there so I'm not distracted, you know, and it's been really helpful. I've found like I'm just feeling more positive and better and not distracted. And Rose, the modern saviour of AA, available in hardback summer 2023. You never know, if I ever get a bit of time on my hands, and I've you know, making an ebook is pretty cool. You never know, people might be interested. But yeah, of course, it's getting something like that done. That's the thing. But it would be another interesting way to kind of with like an alternative way other than watching the VODs, I suppose. And having the YouTube archive is going to be useful when compiling, but that's true as well. Just watch every single video and type it all out. I am aware that there's tools out there that kind of pull out every single thing you say in your YouTube videos, but I don't think they're cheap. I've heard about something like that. I thought that would be really handy with an ebook, to just pull everything out that's said in the YouTube videos, and then you can just reorganize it right into ebook format. But yes, I'm so happy that I've got every single stream at all time, because it's all there and it's just nice. I would have been gutted if I didn't do that and all the VODs just were gone. I'm being gutted. Okay, so let's get those stakes in. So, have Carol get kidnapped or just cornered and threatened in a town to raise player fear, being unable to defend herself? That's another 2. So, Carol gets kidnapped. And, well, we'll put in brackets the bit we're saying. So, this plays to her fear, being unable to defend herself. It's interesting with these internal stuff that's going on in Kate's head, because some characters are pretty okay with showing their vulnerabilities, but someone like Carol has so much pride and arrogance that she would have a hard time admitting these fears to somebody. It's kind of inner subconscious. Okay, and another one, Carol gets cornered and threatened in a town. Super cool, because these are things we don't want to forget. You know, you never know, we might get to the point where we're working on the next quest or even side quests, and we just want something to go off, and this could help get some ideas flowing. So in this second instance of Carol being threatened, have Rose step in to protect her, to start bridging the gap between them and put on better. Yeah, that's a really cool idea actually. So we'll put that as a second one. Why is it bullet points are silly on Google Docs? Violet, because Rose is now called Violet, which I see Zex is corrected, which is fine. I'm in the habit of calling a Rose still as well all the time, but it will eventually sink in. So Carol gets cornered and threatened in a town. Violet steps in to protect her. Starts bridging the gap between them and puts them on better terms. Cool. And we'll do the same for Nigel and Fiona, folks. This template's gonna literally, the same one will be used for them. So we'll have some potential stakes for those two as well. And you never know, it could help us with ways to improve the current scenes further that we've got, or even main quest 3 as well, which we haven't even done yet. But think of future ideas for events that could happen involving them in episode 1. Okay, so are we ready to move on to Nigel, do you think, folks? Let's catch up with chat first. I'm not sure if I told you, but the reason I've been absent was that I actually cancelled my internet for 6 months back in March. I planned to go an entire year without an ISP, but lightning struck my computer and forced me to replace it, which meant I had to get internet back. Oh my god, that is terrible. If that was me, I'd have been destroyed. I'm glad that you're back though, Simon. That must have been frustrating. And it was such a wonderful experience where I felt so focused on my goals. Yeah. Life without the internet though, my goodness. I mean, like we say, it can be good in some ways because it stops distractions. But what if your passions involve the internet, right? Then you are screwed. Like, if it was me, I couldn't stream on Twitch anymore or any of that. And if you replace every piece of wood on a barrel one at a time until every piece has been eventually placed, is it the same barrel? Oh, interesting question. You know, I really like these really deep questions. It makes you think about things and the world building and all things like that. One thing I want in 2021 are more world building streams, so we can really get that lore bible filled out and have a world that these people are living in that feels real. I'm very much a believer that characters and focusing on them is initially more important than the world building, because we got to care about the people living in the world. We're not going to care about the world if we don't care about the people. But then having that world built that they're living is really cool to do then as well, to really get it super intriguing and real. But yeah, is that true? But would it be the same barrel? It probably would, I think, because you know that I guess they are a person, right? Let's think of if it was a real human and every piece of flesh and every organ got replaced. It'd still be that same soul living in that body, right? Even though their body parts got changed. I think it'd work in a similar way. And let's see what chat thinks. So, well, if her pride and arrogance stops her from talking about her fears, then it's our job to put her in a situation where she has to acknowledge her fears and ask for help, because humbling her is how she grows out of her said pride. Yes. Yeah, that is very true, and I think that is really going to be fascinating with Carol, the moment that us as the audience see her humbling, and we're going to get it's going to slowly start happening. It's not going to happen immediately because it's too premature if we have her be humble and nice too early, but we're going to see glimpses of it. And eventually she's going to grow into someone who has humbled, and it'll be those kind of situations where she starts to trust us a bit more and talk to us. She'll finally start to feel comfortable with opening up to us. I think she's got so much potential for such a character arc. I mean, to go from believing to not trusting other people and only being comfortable with your own kind, to going from believing that you can form close bonds with others outside your own community and family, like that is especially because she's so hostile and so Zendaya at this point in time. So she's going to be this opposite of that after that. That's interesting to picture a Carol that's the opposite of the current Carol. Oh yes, ready for Nigel. Wow, I can never do 6 months off the internet. I wouldn't be able to work. I know. It would be madness. And oh well, I actively chose to cancel this. I wasn't forced off it, but I understand. Yeah, well, if your passions are, you make loads of music, don't you, Silent? That sort of thing's great to not have the internet for, because you can really focus. You don't have the silly internet distracting you. For sure, it definitely depends what your passions involve. And where we treat things persons, and yeah, entities can change within, and that's independent. Interesting. And that's the thing about the Theseus ship. I don't think we cannot do this with a human being. There is no way of knowing if a person would change. And maybe they would need to rest between each few planks being replaced, or even absorb some rain to incorporate them, since that magic that brought them to life is raindrop related. Yeah, it's a very interesting thing to think about, and I will be looking. I look through every single VOD after I've streamed and had my dinner, and anything like really interesting that's been brought up in chat by you guys, I always save into my secret notepad file. So that like when the time comes, if we do world building and that, I've got some like stuff that you guys have said that's helped have us something to go off. So you never know. We can talk about barrel kind and that a bit more and things like that at some point. Because Carol's got a whole history we've got to build. This flashback here is just one flashback of potentially a few. Okay, are we moving on to Nigel then? I think so. So Nigel's a blank slate at the moment. We did have a few ideas for him though last week, so I'm going to talk to you guys about those now, because I've got some notes here. And then we'll move on to his sister Fiona as well. So as an overview of Nigel, he's timid, he's very overly polite, he's quite well mannered, and his vocabulary is probably quite good as well. He's probably a reader. He probably reads a lot. His surname is Bookington, and that could be double meaning. One, because he books people in the inn. It's a pun. And the other one, because he reads loads of books, right? So, quite funny. So, he probably lacks self-esteem and confidence, because he hesitates, he stutters a bit, he tries to overplease. He's very apologetic, very well mannered, and he is also a romance option in the game, a gay romance option. And we kind of talked about the potential idea that he gets very attached quite easily. He's a bit more easy to get. Probably because he's very keen on being appreciated. That's part of why he tries to please people and be so nice to them, because he wants that validation that he's worthy, possibly, and that's why he gets into relationships easily as well. Somebody said that he probably might feel he's only capable of having one night stands. And every relationship in his past was likely terrible, and that's why he's like this now. And really all he wants deep down is somebody to truly connect with. So that's a little bit that we talked about with Nigel. But it'd be interesting to think of other things regarding him as well. I mean, we can totally go with this theme of wanting to be loved and wanting to find love and all that. If we want to go that way with Nigel, we can. But let's not limit ourselves to not exploring other potential directions for his character as well. The whole timid, nervous guy personality is very interesting, and I'd like to see what we could come up with that. I mean, of course, the whole relationship thing is still a thing because he's a romance option, but it doesn't have to be everything. It doesn't literally have to be all Nigel is important for. He could have, what does Nigel like doing in his spare time? What are his hobbies other than being the innkeeper, for example? What does he do when he's in the inn, waiting for customers? Questions like that are what I wonder with Nigel. Like, does he read? What does he read if he does? Because he'd be bored if he was just standing there, right? We also know he had past dealings with the fruits. There's rumours that the basket that the fruits are in Main Quest 2, in the scene where you meet them, actually belong to Nigel. That basket is Nigel's. And that is why Fiona is trying to give them what they want so she can protect her brother. Rumours are that he's being bullied by the fruits, which with his timid character could be possible. This is all stuff that's not set in stone, but it's definitely worthwhile to consider so that we can link Nigel and his sister in with the fruits and give them a connection to each other. It's always really cool to link NPCs together. And because it's pretty certain they do have a link, because we know that Fiona is aware of the fruit's existence, because she basically told us to sacrifice Violet to those fruits. So she definitely knows they exist. Whether she knows what their motives are to conquer Lightfall and kill everyone, probably not, because she probably would not want to be involved in that unless she was evil too. But there's a lot to think about. Also, they have no parents. What happened to their parents? We had a chat about that actually, so I might get the notepad file up about the parents, because a few people had ideas. We do know they're dead, and they probably died either in the massacre that happened during the war between the humans and the reptiles, or they died after the massacre when giving birth to Fiona. Because I think they might have still been alive, because the massacre was longer than Fiona's age. It was a longer period of time ago than the age that Fiona is, which means that they might have still lived, or at least, they might have still lived and then died after. So there's a few things to think about there. I might get the notes up in a sec to remind myself what was said about them before. But let's catch up with chat to see what everybody else thinks about Nigel before we proceed. Nigel's belief that he isn't a cutie patootie. The truth, he's heckin' handsome. Zexy loves Nigel. He's romanceable for Zexy. I like the idea of a bookworm type character that is really argumentative, but in a sort of way where he just enjoys getting really deep into a subject and is always willing to change his perspectives. Maybe he's too much of a pushover. Yeah, pushover is definitely what Nigel is. That defines him for sure. And yeah, argumentative's definitely interesting. Nigel doesn't strike me as that because he's so much of a pushover. But it would be interesting one day to meet his polar opposite, that is, in another town, who knows. And thank you, Tabby, for that follow. I appreciate it. The leader of a debate team, yeah. Now I'm imagining Nigel trying to do a debate. He'd be like just all over the place. I don't think he'd be able to get a sentence straight. That might be his fear. Doing public speeches. Well, it might be a bit more internal than that, but it'd be interesting to think of. So, Zexy, if he wants to connect, then to resolve that, you need to let him have a full romance with someone. So he'd have to be a full romance, or we'd have to have the option to set him up with someone else. Otherwise, his arc wouldn't be resolved. That's a really, really, really good point, Zexy. Which now you've said that, I'm hesitant to make the love side of his character his key things and key arc, because that would mean he'd literally have to be for a forced romance, which he isn't. Nigel is just a casual romance in the story, which means he's optional, and he's also only available if you were of the male gender as a romance. He won't be interested in you if you were a female. And I don't think he'd be interested if he was non-binary as well. I think he's a male-only option for romancing. So, he's an optional and casual romance as well, because he lives in Lakefall, and from episode 1 onwards, we will be leaving Lakefall and going to other places in the world, and the only time we can go back to Lakefall is if we fast travel. And we can see what the villagers are up to when we go back, but there won't be any real story progression. Not really, unless there was the odd quest or two. you know, but we will be focusing on other areas of the world after we've moved on here. So because of that, he's not a continuous character that's with us on our adventures like Carol the Barrel or Violet is, for example. And you never know, he might be dead in some people's playthroughs, because it's horrible to say, but the characters do have to die. He could totally be alive in some people's playthroughs. It just depends how you play the game. And it's not set in stone who's going to get killed off in Nightfall yet. That's not even going to get decided till later on in the year when we work on Main Quest 5. But the truth is, if the reptiles do conquer Lakefall with your assistance, if you decide you're on Team Reptile, for example, you know, Nigel might be absolutely buggered. All the humans might be, but it's not black and white. We know there's a conflict between reptiles and humans, but it's not going to be as straightforward as humans all win, reptiles all win. There's going to be lots of intricacies in between. There's probably going to be options. There's definitely going to be that option to back out of the conflict and just observe it rather than take part as well. In case you don't want, if you decide you'd rather be a hero that isn't like that sort of person that sides with anyone. But there's definitely going to be consequences to each of the things that happen, and one of the consequences will be that the fruits end up living in Lakefall in the end, and not neither the humans or reptiles will be populating the town. Just because it's wacky and bonkers to potentially have Lemon as the blacksmith and Plum as the innkeeper and have them raise their prices just to spite you. Even though you would have spared them, they'd still do that because they're mean. That the only way the fruits can populate Lightfall at the end is if you spared them, and if you did another thing that we talked about briefly before, but we don't have time to talk about again because we got to talk about Nigel. Wow, he's way more of a pushover than what I initially thought. What if later in the Nigel arc he discovers a secret ancient tome in his readings, which leads him to this discovering of a great secret? Interesting, because if he is a bookworm and he reads books of history, he strikes me a bit of a history nerd, actually. Nigel does, now think about it. He's got a good vocabulary, he's well mannered. Yeah, he strikes me as that kind of guy. So say if he's very into history and culture and all that, and he reads a lot of those books, he could totally find a secret. Who knows? And we've talked about that in previous streams. I'm very into putting books around the world with little lore tidbits in. Things like the Lakefall tree, for example, and the history of the Lakefall tree. Father Maple, etc., having like lore things for even you to read as the player, so that we can learn about the world and things that we write in the lore Bible that we want to put actually in the game. And Nigel, I could imagine some of those books would be in the inn and Nigel would pick up and read some himself. Maybe he's a bit of a nerd about the history of and founding of Lakefall. Something to think about. There's many ways we can take this guy. We've got the love direction, which we're probably not going to take fully because, like we said, it would mean he'd have to be a forced romance, otherwise his arc couldn't be complete. But I still definitely think, obviously it's something that's going to be explored if you go in a relationship with him, though, but only if. And hello, how is it here? Hi, Horrible Hog, how are you doing? I love your name. Horrible Hog, love the alliteration, and hogs are cute animals. Hope you're having a good day. It could be like a secret about the massacre, and it could change perspectives about what happened to his parents. True as well. Interesting. What about Nigel believing someone specific, like the blacksmith or the shopkeeper's son, is disrespectful and bullying him? But the truth is the person is actually just playfully teasing, maybe flirting, and the resolution is helping Nigel realise that instead of jumping into conclusions about someone's motives, he needs to be assertive and communicate his concerns. Interesting. So we've had some good ideas. Shall we play with what's in here? Shall we have a look through? Maybe assign a few for him. Pick our favourites. and just like potentially list the different truths and morals that we could end up with based on what we fill in. I feel like we'll start to really get to grips with him when we fill this in, and there might be a lot of different directions to take, but definitely what you guys are saying is something to go off, and I'll make sure, hopefully I don't forget what you've said. If I do, I'll just look through if I'd have to stream and add it here. Yeah, I would bully Nigel because I'm intimidating by his intelligence, since I don't read any books at all, but I've always wanted to, and then my image as a tough blacksmith is ruined. Alright, so we won't start off with the past because it's pretty difficult, if not impossible, to write a backstory without figuring out what's going on in their head internally first. But whatever this belief is will be influenced by the past. So it's probably good to start on the belief. Now this is still a bit of an experimentation. This will be the real first time we've done this properly. I mean, we did it for Carol, but she was already sort of done anyway before I even did the mega list. So if we look through and figure out which ones are really appropriate for Nigel in these beliefs, we might really figure out some things about him. So obviously his moral story could be realising he needs to be more assertive and stand up for himself. That could be suitable, but let's see what we could end up with. Let's see what combination of things we'll get. If anyone wants to look, it's in the idea discussion channel, folks, if you want to read properly, because I'm aware it's probably not easy to look through when you know, I've only got a bit on the screen at this time. Nigel is a god for sure. There'd be someone who thinks that, and there'd probably be a bit of a narcissist, unless they were telling the truth, of course. Someone who'd say that, I'm not sure if Nigel would think that, because that's somebody who's not really, that's just someone who's a realist, that is. Someone who realised that in the cosmic scheme of things, everybody in the planet is insignificant. But Nigel's beliefs, I think, would be more about his self-esteem and his lack of confidence. So, but there could be some others that we think are appropriate for Nigel that aren't related to self-confidence. We'll have to look through and think. That could be a Nigel one. I'm going to mark an X by any that feel Nigel appropriate. So, chat, if you think any in here are very Nigel appropriate, if you want to look through, let me know in chat and I'll mark an X next to it so we don't miss it. But we'll slowly look through all these. 4, 10 and 12 could work. Yeah, there we go. So you think that could work for him. So we'll mark it anyway. 12. Librarian is probably poor, so technically it fits. Yeah, it's interesting to think of. I mean, Lakefall in general, in terms of their riches, they're definitely a very humble group of villagers. They're definitely not loaded. They sleep on hammocks for a start, so the inn is just there for the people that want the luxury that visit, really. But we haven't done the hammocks yet, but there will be hammocks in the village. So I mean, we could mark it there because I definitely wouldn't say no. It's worth marking. 13, he could blame himself for his parents' deaths. Could do. I think it's worth putting that there as well. Even the what happened, if we want to be less specific. He could think he's a burden. For example, if it's true that he's being bullied by the fruits and Fiona's having to fight his battles for him, he could probably feel like that about himself. He could feel powerless because he couldn't save them. I mean, he's probably not a tough guy, so. But I don't think Nigel was born during the. I mean, we set the timeline on the massacre, and I think it was about 17 years ago. I'd have to double check, but I believe 17 was the number. So if Nigel's in his 20s, he would have been a very young child. But you know, it could still work. Even as a child, he could have blamed himself for not saving them. And maybe hiding away or something while it was all happening. If it happened 17 years ago, the war, if he's in his mid-20s, say, then that would make him, you know, about 8 years old, 7, 8 years old. Could work. It's not impossible. But the problem is, Fiona wouldn't have been born if his parents died in the war. So maybe they survived the war, but something happened to the others that he blamed himself for, or maybe his parents were very injured or something and things weren't the same for them and he had to take over the inn, and Fiona was born and she ended up being more able, so she ended up being the innkeeper in the end. All random thoughts are coming in my head now. I want to get up the document now of when we were talking about Fiona and Nigel, folks, because there was a lot of ideas people were having about their parents, and I want to make sure that doesn't go missed. So I'm just going to open up and review what was said about the parents. So here, yeah, I found the document. I'll look through it. There's a lot in here, but I'll find it. Let's catch up with chat first. Maybe not if he's into history and the parents died from the massacre, whatever that is. Well, we don't have to be rigidly make him a history geek. If we feel that he'll be better being somebody else, we can always change him. We'll see what works best, because we'll probably have a few ideas for Nigel, and we'll just end up going with whatever's best once we've got them all down. And 17 for the motivation I described above. Okay, why is the cross gone weird? There we go. 32 seems powerless is a better fit. The 13 for that reason. 32 seems fitting for a pushover. I'm always wrong, and anyone who doesn't agree must be just being nice. And although someone that is a bookworm wouldn't think they're always wrong about things, at least when it comes to knowledge, yeah. Someone who thinks they're wrong could be another character altogether, you know. That could potentially work for someone else if it doesn't for Nigel. And 32, if you want him to have a conflict with his sister and thinks he's wrong and she's right. 36, I'm a nobody and won't make a difference. All right. But yeah, now, because you mentioned his sister, I mean, it'll be good to at least think of Fiona side by side Nigel, I think, because we haven't developed her yet even. We don't really know that she's always right. She's got her insecurities herself too. There was a few things mentioned about Fiona that she feels like people are looking down on her because she's short, which she is, and it makes her feel inferior and she doesn't like it. It makes her feel like a child and she wants to be grown up. So I think Fiona's very underestimated because of her youth. And she fights back because she wants to be independent. That's how I could see Fiona's arc going. A child who wants to break free from being seen as a child. But generally she is the polar opposite of her brother, because she's very confident and wants to see. She just goes out into the world. She doesn't really have the fears. But Nigel definitely is more someone who is fearful. 36, awesome, we got that there. If you romance Nigel and spare the fruits, the oldest fruit goes out with the blacksmith. The oldest fruit is that lemon. I think lemon's our oldest fruit, isn't it? Oh my god. Could you imagine the fruits dating the humans? That would be insane. But very, very welcome. Actually, you could have 31 for Fiona and 32 for Nigel, and they're both wrong if you want something connected and easy. I'm always right, and anyone who doesn't agree has no business dealing with me. Yeah, you never know, it could work actually if we made like Fiona and Nigel share the opposite beliefs. I mean, we'll see, because then we also might find that they work better as individual characters and have a lot to offer as individuals with character arcs, rather than them, you know. We'll see where we go, because this is very anything possible at this point with them. You could think he's 37 as well. Maybe that one, number 50, I should not speak my mind because I might get in trouble. If he gets bullied and things like that, I could. But we're getting a few here. We're going to have to set in stone it eventually. Maybe it'll be easier once we've done the beliefs, if so we end up with so many. We move on to the desires. I think that'd be smart then, and whatever we pick as the desire or the fear, the belief has to sort of be influenced by it anyway, so we'll naturally go with the one that just is the best fit. I mean, that's another low self-esteem one, but I don't think it applies to Nigel because I don't really think he's faking who he is. He's pretty much being this timid guy. And I wouldn't say he's faking that timid side. I'd say he's pretty much that way, unless he was really a villain. That would be very shocking. There's so many of these to look through that we could take for a very long time. So I'm going to skim read and see what strikes me. But if chat you see anything, if you're looking through, feel free to mention, because you never know, I might miss something. There are a lot after all. I mean, that could be very Fiona. I will get bored if I stay in one place for too long. Because she's the innkeeper, right, Fiona? Maybe she really just doesn't like her job. That's what she is. She just prefers to go out and adventure and walk around the forest. Because one thing we do know about Fiona is that she isn't in the inn when we arrive, and her brother's very concerned about her. But Fiona's probably, you know, I'd say that's her way, that she goes out a lot, and Nigel just hates that she goes, and that's why he gets us to do his dirty work for him, because he's too scared to look for her himself, and he just doesn't, I don't know. What I'm gonna do, instead of doing the X thing, I'm gonna mark it with F and N. So N for Nigel and F for Fiona, because it looks like we might go through and do them both at the same time and figure out "41, he thinks he's waiting for the perfect moment, but actually he's using that as an excuse because the perfect moment never comes for anyone." Alright, so... Oh, not Fiona, Nigel. Yeah, he's just standing in that inn all day waiting for the perfect moment, but nope, never gonna come. I do like that one. I mean, I don't know whether it's, I mean, it could be better for another NPC that's got less going on than Nigel. Nigel's being shaped into quite an intriguing, timid character, so maybe that would be a good fit for the hermity type of character that doesn't really have any personality. Am I back? I think I'm back, aren't I? I'm back. Yeah, it came up in like a red big notification that I dis. Oh, okay, thanks for letting me know, chat, because I don't know when I've come back. So you'll just see me sitting here and not saying anything. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. It's weird because I have to say I'm very used to having a really stable internet. I've been streaming since 2017, and I think only once in my history of streaming have I had a disconnection, other than today. So it's an odd thing to happen, especially at this time of day. You're good now, it seems. Could be a Twitch side issue or an ISP side issue. Yeah, let's hope it doesn't happen again. Because when, you know, it's very, if the reason this would really annoy me if it happened a lot is because of my VODs and the fact I upload them on YouTube, right? And it's such a pain in the butt to put separate long videos together. It takes forever. So I'm hoping that my VOD's not all separated now, because it would be a bit of a job to get that piece together, unless there's a good software out there that does it. I think it's all still in one VOD though. I think we might be fine. That's really all I care about, having my VOD not be separated. Okay, so we'll carry on where we were. The longer you go, the chance of an irregularity approaches. Yeah, let's hope not, because it's stressful and it's disruptive as well. And I forgot where we were now. Right, that would probably take like 5 hours to render. Exactly. So that would just be an absolute nightmare. Like I said, it's only ever happened once before, and it was a really early Raindrop Chronicles stream, and I had to like put the VODs that were in pieces together, and it took me like a whole day. It was really bad quality as well. It made my computer die quite a lot as well, because it was hogging all the CPU. Okay, so where were we? We were looking through, weren't we? And we were figuring out what was good for Nigel and Fiona. So chat, if you figure out some and you think, yeah, that could be Nigel and Fiona, let me know and I'll put an N and an F next to them. We're going through our list. That could be Fiona. Potentially Fiona now, or not. These might not necessarily be perfect for them. You know, we could rewrite them in our own words if we get set on one. But if they give me vibes of Fiona and Nigel, I'll probably put a mark by it. The new Blender version is pretty grand for simple video editing, yeah? There are lots of nice tutorials. Oh, cool. Yeah, if any of you in chat know any really good ways to piece separate videos into one, let me know. So that's one that Hog said. Because it's really, you know, all I need to do is put them all together. There wouldn't need to be any fancy video editing done. It's just about piecing videos together. But I think we're good. I think it's kept it all in the same one. I'd hope so anyway. Oh no, it hasn't. Freaking hell. Let me check because it's bothering me. It's reset my stream and it says I've been streaming for 5 minutes. So I think it separated it. It's not showing me though in my video thingy. Weird that is, because although Streamlabs OBS says I've been streaming for just 5 minutes, because it restarted the stream. Shut up. Double Rose voice, go away. Yeah, it does say that the VOD is still all in one. I expected it to all be separated. It might be good though. I'm not going to get my hopes up though. Expect me to be up forever tonight trying to put that VOD together if so. Okay. 71, Zexy says. So I would get bored if I stay in one place for too long. So thoughts on 71 being Fiona's truth based on what you were saying about her. So like that being the opposite. Let's just remind ourselves what the truth is. The truth is what they actually really need. Not so much what they want, which is their desire, but really what they need to learn. And it's at the opposite of the lie they believe. So if 71 is Fiona's truth, something like that. Well, no, that wouldn't be the opposite. Where's the opposite of that one? Because I've been putting opposites together. Usually, yeah, the opposite's either above or below it, but that's the anxious one's just a different emotion. Okay, well, but yeah, we've got the F next to there, so it's worth considering. Because really the beliefs can be the truths as well. They're just, some of them mixed in here are like the polar opposite of the lie, the belief for sure. But because we don't, for some reason, the opposite one of this I haven't added, like I have with some of the others. I have to think what the opposite is. My brain's melted. Okay. Yeah, Woody seems to have the never find love thing, but I feel like Woody's character arc can be more than just that as well. You know, like Woody's got a lot of potential and more to give, and he's not necessarily everyone's going to romance him either. Nigel, we actually marked that one as a Nigel one. I will scare people away once they find out how much I like them. So we mark that as a Nigel one, so that might be a possibility too. That might be a Nigel one. Oh gosh, pardon me. Some interesting different world outlooks here for sure. That could be a Nigel one. People should be scared because of what happened in the past. He's scared. What happened in the past was the massacre, so he might have a belief that, you know, people should be very wary and shouldn't be going out and picking flowers in the forest like my sister because of what happened in the past. They should be careful. And that would make him and his sister have like a very tense dynamic then, because he's always saying, look, you shouldn't do that, Fiona, because of what happened. And she's like, no, you're not stopping me. I thought I was going to scare Rose away with how much I love her. When? When would you think that? Hi, Wolf. How are you doing? Hope you're doing well. You'd never scare me away. What would make you think that? I don't know. I like the idea of her thinking she has to run the inn, maybe to honour her parents, that she has to stay in late for, and she ends up realising she actually wants to explore and travel the world or something. Yeah, the only thing I'm thinking with that is the first time we meet Fiona, the first thing we know of her is that she's an adventurous little girl that has left the inn and gone out into the forest unsupervised. So she's already showing us indications of the fact she likes to explore early on. So if we made her moral be that she wants to explore, there wouldn't be much character arc growth there, because she's already been that person from the beginning. So naturally, if we were gonna give her a theme and a moral, it would be very different to the Fiona that we know at the start, that's left and started exploring the forest. But you know, Fiona's themes and story doesn't have to be about exploring and adventuring, because there's other things we know about Fiona too. We know that she's captured Violet the vampire. We know that she's done that. We know that she's making deals with the fruits. We know that she's protecting her brother. Potentially, if the fruits are bullying him, then she's like being his protector. So there's other sides to her personality too. There's not just the whole adventurous part. I mean, I like that idea too, Zexy, but I'm wondering whether that would fit another NPC completely, just because someone that is more attached to their home at the start when we meet them, and then learns to be adventurous afterwards. Because Fiona, yeah, we know her as someone who is pretty rebellious little girl leaving the inn right at the beginning. I was just teasing. Good. Okay, so number 165 is one that we've got. People should be more than just customers or pet projects. So Fiona or Nigel. Oh yeah, I was going to say. So people should not be treasured. Don't get attached to people. Okay, so. And that would be Fiona. I mean, Fiona's pretty, you know, she's trapped someone in a cage, so she definitely doesn't treasure people. Right, so she is adventurous, but she thinks she can't. She thinks she has to give up on her love for exploring to run the inn, and that's the belief that isn't true. Oh, okay. So you're seeing it differently to how I am, and I just haven't clicked on. So you're thinking that from the point of view that Fiona believes that she's trapped, even things are keeping her there, and it's almost like she's an animal let out the cage. Do you mean from that sort of perspective? Like she thinks she can't because she's like trapped, but the actual belief is she can do that. But can she? Because Nigel's not letting her. Well, the first quest is him making us get her. So the question is, how would she come to that conclusion that she could do it if her brother's holding her back by being a scared boy and always bringing her back home? Does that mean she would have to cut ties with him? There's all sorts to think about here. It's interesting to discuss because so many directions. Alright. All the cookie related ones are kind of attached to Oliver because he's a cookie jar. So there'll probably be a whole quest line that eventually involves cookies when Oliver's more prominent. Because we got so many cookie ones here. I mean, that could even be Nigel wanting to protect his sister. There's a Fiona one there that we've marked. People should look after themselves, including children. And then we could always give Nigel the opposite one. Because we said the good thing about the opposite ones can sometimes be for character dynamic, to have two characters interact that believe different. That is an excellent way to put it. I do mean she is trapped, and the resolution is finding a way to leave if she lives. Interesting. It's an interesting thing to consider as well, because as someone with the whole threat that's looming with the reptiles taking back their land, if Fiona was trapped, she would actually be her life would actually be more in danger. It's quite kind of ironic, really, because Nigel is worried about her not being at home, when really it's probably more dangerous for them to be in, like, for one, because of the reptiles wanting to take back their land, and two, because of the fruits wanting to conquer Lake Fall. So there's two threats there, two groups of antagonists that want to take the land. So really it's not safe being in Lightfall. Fiona's actually better off if she does leave. And if we do decide that that's her lesson and theme, that she can leave, that would mean she could potentially be saved as well. if she completes her character arc, you could tell her this and be like, you can leave, you don't have to be trapped, and you're not trapped because this, that, etc. She can come to that conclusion herself or whatever, and eventually she will leave and not get killed off when the fruits or the reptiles come back. It all depends whether her character arc gets complete or not, and whether she's saved. If she figures that out, her life could potentially be saved. It's an interesting one for sure, because I've just realised the whole threat of Lightfall as well, because people are going to want to save certain NPCs, aren't they? And you as the player should probably get the chance to save some and, you know, let some escape before everything goes down. You know, and have a life elsewhere. And maybe she's afraid that if she abandons the inn and it fails without her, everyone will think she's unreliable. Yeah, that's true too. Though I think that belief could fit to even another works person in the town. Maybe even the blacksmith owner. Someone who's maybe more serious about their job, perhaps. Because we have a blacksmith, we have an item shop, and we have a tavern as well, a cafe. So I'm not sure if Fiona's entirely serious about her work and her job. She's kind of just keen on getting out. She's like, yeah, I'm trapped. I'm an animal out of cage. Let me out. My brother's stopping me going out. How dare he? Telling me you should, because we kind of are getting a bit of that indication already that she's a bit rebellious. She doesn't do a job, and she kind of leaves it to Nigel to deal with. But I definitely do like that belief. I think it's a good one, but maybe more fitting for another NPC that's living in the village that is more serious about their work. And you could easily make this a dual topic stream. One side game dev, other side I can't even say the word thinking. Yeah, like see, the game dev's very minimal in this channel, because I do all the complex stuff off stream. Anything that generally requires extreme focus, I do on my days away from the channel. And anything that's very discussion focused, I kind of like to bring to my streams. So anything like really lore or character building, or even game design ideas, and anything that's really good to discuss, I like to do on stream for sure. And Rose, Happy New Year and Merry Christmas, even though I'm like, hi Ragnarok, how you doing? Welcome back to the stream. Hope you are having a good year so far. Happy New Year back to you. But yeah, I'm kind of like, I didn't realise it at first, the whole trapped one, the resolution being finding a way to leave, like, but now I've connected it and I'm understanding it more. It could be the best one, because it could be the perfect end to get Fiona out of Lakefall if we want to save her. And you don't necessarily have to save her if you hate her guts. You and Fiona potentially might have a bit of a bad relationship if you pushed her in the lake, you see. So sometimes when it comes to the character's theme and lesson and moral and truth, it might go a bad way. It might not necessarily go a good way. It could go the bad way if you developed a bad relationship with that character, which is why I sort of wanted to, in this section with the truth, with the star, eventually we'll probably have a 2 or more outcomes for the truth, depending on what hero type you have. Because if you're a compassionate hero, that'd be something Carol would totally realise over time. But if you play the opposite of a compassionate hero, no, she will not realise that. All depends on where you take your hero, because it really wouldn't really make sense if Carol was realising she could find all these wholesome connections with humans and other races if you was an asshole. So it all depends on what hero you're building, right? And that would make a lot of sense for a blacksmith if he makes the armour and weapons, since he runs away from battle. That could put doubt in the usefulness of his wares. Yeah, and I think it would be good for the blacksmith as well, because although we haven't really done anything in regards to the blacksmith character yet or thought much up of them, there was a very, very brief discussion in very early streams where we said that he probably feels to blame for the massacre and the fact that the people that got killed in the war weren't well equipped with weapons and armour, and blames the fact that his armour and weapons weren't good enough to make them win the war. And that could definitely form the type of character that becomes very serious about their work and making what they do like good and that. But you know, it's an interesting one. So yeah, I can definitely see the blacksmith going that way. Fiona ends up piloting the end game airship. Yeah, who knows? It's an interesting way to think that she could go that way. Thank you so much, Melon Bread, for that raid. I appreciate it. How was your stream? Let's give a shout out to Melon. Stardew Valley, how did that go? Tell us how your stream went. Thanks for stopping by and bringing your community here. Well, if the hero is an asshole, maybe that pushes Carol into talking, connecting with other party members that aren't. So she has the same outcome, it's just that the hero isn't included, maybe. Yeah, if we want to like make it easier on like myself as the developer, then that could be something we do. But Carol herself will probably have multiple endings by the end of episode 6. She might have the general positive Carol ending, the bittersweet Carol ending, tragic Carol ending, wholesome Carol ending. I can see us having 2 or 3, maybe a few endings for Carol by episode 6. So I can definitely imagine her having different attitudes depending on how the ending was. So really the whole point of having a moral compass of a hero is for the NPCs to be shaped as well, right? Because they're changing based on your actions and how you influence them. It's harder work for sure. It definitely makes the project more ambitious if we want to go for that sort of thing. But it's interesting, and it makes the replayability value even more interesting too, because what Carol learns could just be totally, she could just transform into a different way, no negative or positive, who knows. But it would be interesting for people to like see other outcomes that way, or watch other streams or let's plays to see how Carol turned out in another playthrough. So yeah, although ambitious, it's still quite cool. Vagabond, how are you doing? Thank you so much for that raid as well. 2 raids in a row. How are you doing? How was your stream? Let's give a shout out to Vagabond Dog. So you had your first stream back for the new year, didn't you, Vagabond? How did it go? Tell us. Stream good, glad to be back. Yeah, did you enjoy your break? What did you get up to on the stream? And thanks for joining Riggy, Coda and Minty. Thanks for coming along with the raid. I appreciate it. And hi Mama as well, how are you doing? I appreciate it. We're doing a character arc discussion today. Got a big massive Google Doc that's going into real depth with Carol so far, her internal sort of thoughts and behaviours and how what's going on inside her head's affecting her behaviours. It's all very complex stuff but super fun. So this is going to be our technique for making super cool characters with good character arcs. And we're looking through our list of character beliefs, desires and fears that we made last week to figure out which ones we should go for each character. It's fun. Lots of fun. And this was the first stream. We played some Calico. We'll be back in an hour to make some new game stuff. Oh wow, exciting. Are you working on that multiplayer game? I think you were, aren't you? Gonna get some lunch. Well, I hope it's your birthday party. Pardon me. Dave, thank you for the host. I managed to catch it. The hosts don't come up anymore. Silly Twitch. How dare you not tell me Dave was hosting me. How are you doing now, Dave? I hope you're well. Carol's worst ending is her ending up with Axel. Wow, yes. I mean, it's definitely going to be pretty broad with endings, and as you guys know, I'm kind of building that skeleton off stream. Some things will be spoilt, some things will be unspoilt, it'll all depend. Because the things that won't be spoiled will be things that might be too early to admit at this point in the game, because there might be a couple of twists and cliffhangers along the way, but we're still very early days, we're still only in episode 1 content, but I am kind of keeping in mind some things that might happen by the end of episode 6, even if only very vague right now, just so we're not going to be not just so things don't come as a complete unexpected shock. It's nice to plan to some degree. Okay, so hey Rose, how's it going? Not too bad, Dave. Just waking up, slept too much, and I've got work in a couple of hours. How about you? Oh, are you back after your break? Oh no, you didn't have a break, did you? I remember you saying you were working on Christmas. But I hope it goes well. How you doing, Sorter, as well? Hope you're well. Today we're going to make a juicy new update for Sometimes Always Monsters. Oh, I hope that goes well. Rose, are you not on Twitter anymore? I've temporarily deactivated my account. It won't be for good though. I will be back. Just having a break, because Twitter's very it's a real distraction, and it's a waste of time. So I'm very cynical, as you can tell, but I will be back. But I think a break will do me some good. So don't worry, guys, it's only temporary. My Raindrop RPG account still is up though, folks, so that one's still there. If you want to follow me on there, any new peoples. I've never logged into Twitter on my phone. I intend to keep it that way. That's actually quite a good idea, Dave. I might delete the app from my phone. You know, the first thing I did when I woke up today? I woke up and I opened the Twitter app, and then I realised my account was deactivated. Just shows the bad habits you can get into. And as soon as I realised my account was deactivated, I was like, thank God. I was glad. I was like, oh, thank goodness, I don't have to go look at Twitter this morning, and I just felt better. So it just says everything, doesn't it? But that tells me I have too much of a bad habit of checking it first thing, which isn't good. It's better to do something more productive first thing. So I think it's going to be real good for me to not have it for a while. And sadly, I mean, I would love to just not be on social media at all, and just, you know, do the Twitch and that's it, and YouTube, post my VODs. But sadly, when you're somebody in my position, you have to have some degree of a social media presence if your job is like sort of promoting your product or your content, or is it no one will ever find you or know about you. Plot twist, there's a time loop, and if Carol dies, she gets reincarnated as Myrtle, or Meryl, I was going to say Meryl. Oh my goodness. Imagine if we do have time travel eventually, or even a quest, even if we don't want to go there and we don't want to ruin our story, even just a silly quest line of it would be funny to some degree, but then everything's fine again after. So it is an interesting concept to explore. Same with Facebook. I do not want my phone pinging with social media. Discord is bad enough. Yeah, I'm going to copy you, Dave. I'm going to delete the apps off my phone. I rarely look at Twitter, but I've tailored mine to artists so I don't get as much crap on it. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm part of the whole streamer Twitter thing, being a Twitch streamer. And although I'm very selective with who I follow, I still find that there's a lot of nonsense in my feed that I really don't want to be seeing. And it's weird because I'm not even following anybody who's coming up, so... And I'm like, why is this in my feed? Why is this anything I need to read? And I'm just skipping ahead, but Nigel should have desire 33 to avoid judgment. Yeah, I mean, actually, we should move on to desires very soon. Pardon me. Because what I'm finding is we've got so many belief ideas for these two now that we're just going to get ourselves bogged down with ideas. So maybe we should stick there. Look at the desires and fears, mark down appropriate ones for both Nigel and Fiona, and then we can narrow it down easier. Because if we feel a specific desire or fear is perfect for them, then we can go with that and then just pick the one that links best out the beliefs, or even just make our own from the desire and fear. We don't necessarily have to pick something on the list. It's just something to get the mind ideas flowing and inspiration. Yeah, I don't think any of these ones here, the society and world ones, need a Fiona and Nigel ones really. So let's move on to the desires. I've been less on Facebook too these days, just kind of worn out from listening to people's Oh yes, see, the best thing I ever did was delete my Facebook, or deactivate it. I haven't been on Facebook since 2016. I've been off Facebook for over 4 years, and I haven't missed it. I used to go on it very often in the years before that, but yeah, I feel like that's the worst one, in all honesty. Twitter recommends you tweets based on what you've interacted with and who you follow. Yeah, maybe I'm interacting with the wrong people then, Dave. There's just a lot of unnecessary, pointless gossip and things that aren't productive in my feed, I'm finding. And I wouldn't mind if it was people I knew, but a lot of the time they're just complete randoms. The only reason I'm there is to keep up with family. Yeah, that's a good idea if you sort of want to keep in touch. I'm lucky to be sort of like living with mine right now, so on a few groups that are interests of mine. I think in some ways social media is a great thing, but I think we have to be careful not to let it run our lives, because then it can take over and you're like, what am I doing? Okay, so Zexy said 33 to avoid judgment. Oh no, we've got a... There we go. And oh, that was that Nigel, was it? Not Fiona. It definitely seems more of a Nigel one, so yes, an N for Nigel. So all these early ones that to have oxygen, water, clothing are for people who are really struggling to survive, I guess. So we don't need those ones for them. And some of them are very, very generic, so it can... So this is interesting. I mean, we could look through, or I can leave that to you guys to potentially look through and let me know if any pop up to you. It's in there, guys. We're looking at Fiona and Nigel right now. But something I'm thinking of doing, just because this was really interesting with Fiona in particular. I like the idea. And it. I mean, we might sort of reshape it over time or amend it if necessary. But I am thinking of going with what that discussion we had about Fiona was, because I think it just connects so well to a resolution for her. And it might not be, we might find, who knows, that it's not 100% perfect and we do need to make a change, but I think it's a very good starting point. So, and as for Nigel, I'm doing a bit of a blank on him at the moment in what his truth and moral theme could be, but I think it'd be good to have it somehow connect to his sister some way. The thing about the whole of the episode 1 character arcs with the NPCs, we want them to link thematically, don't we? Because Roots and Rumours is going to focus on certain themes, so it's best to have similar things, similar lessons and themes within these character arcs to the big picture of the episode, you know, and kind of like Carol's is about feeling excluded and not part of society, and you know, the whole community's being apart and divided and not accepting each other sort of concept and theme. Roots and Rumours, it's very much all of Carol's story very much connects with what episode 1 is kind of the story we're telling so far. So it'd be really cool if like all the other NPCs to some degree link in themes, and then same with episode 2 and 3, that'll have key themes. It won't even be anything to do with the Roots and Rumours episode 2, it'll be something else entirely, but who knows what. 94 for Nigel may be a joke. Let's have a look what 94 is. To experience the thrill of murder. Oh my goodness. Imagine if there was a side quest where he's like, I've got to do it. Let me help me kill somebody. Help me kill that reptile. And he's the one that kills I was going to say he can be the one that kills the person in the forbidden romance storyline, but it's the human that's going to die in that plot, not the reptile. The reptile's going to kill a human. I was thinking, could we link Nigel to the whole reptile romance plot? But there might be another NPC we can do that with, unless it could be Nigel. I'll go remind myself what we wrote about that forbidden romance story, but from what I remember, there's a reptile and a human that are in love, and the reptile gets tragically slaughtered by a human who is related to the one that the reptile was in a relationship with, because the human thought the reptile was going to hurt them and they didn't realise, and then it leads to potentially revenge, execution. You're dealing with that one that hurt the reptile, because the reptile Rex, demands it. If you are a reptile sympathiser, will want revenge for that reptile's killing, and he won't join the party as a cleric if you don't do it. Well, that's the same with anything in our life, right? You could get addicted to food and ruin your life. Self-control is king, yeah, for sure. Okay, so we'll focus on Fiona first, just simply because we seem to have a clear moral lesson and theme for her, but I feel like we couldn't fill in Nigel too. This is probably going to be a bit rough around the edges at first as we fill in. Carol's is really great now, but it took a bit of time, a few hours to kind of get it really sorted, and for me to be happy with it and for it to all flow and link in with each other well. Took a bit of time, so I'm not expecting Nigel's and Fiona's to be perfect just yet. Okay, so I mean, we don't have to have a clear starting point here. We can fill in any of them first, but the main thing is, as long as they are all influenced by each other and connect, and we might latch on with different NPCs, we might latch on to different things. With certain NPCs, we might be like, oh, that should be their desire. Oh, that should be their fear. And there's no necessary order for which one we need to fill in first. But as we fill them in, they should all link. Okay, so Fiona and the lesson moral theme. So let me remind myself how we worded this. Okay, so I believe spell. I am trapped. Everything is keeping me here. Because we said that it could be like her feeling like she's like an animal let out the cage, right? Because the first thing we know about Fiona is that it has left the town, the village. She has walked into the forest, and her brother's really worried about her. He gives us a quest to find his little sister for him. But from Fiona's perspective, she feels trapped. She's an adventurous girl and she wants to go out, but she feels like she can't because she owns the inn and her brother's very clingy with her and dependent on her. But the moral lesson we sort of had, because whatever the belief is, the lie they believe, it's a lie. And this part here is the opposite of the lie they believe. So we kind of have to switch that around now into the moral lesson. And Zexy worded it really well. So the resolution is finding a way to leave if she lives. Okay. Realising she actually wants to explore and travel the world. And this could be, we might not word it 100% first time, but we can always do that over time. We don't need perfection with this yet. Just about getting the ideas down. So, how did we word it for Carol? I can or I don't have to be trapped here. I can leave Lakefall. Exploring. If I want to. Something like that is what we got here. Because we're switching with this truth. That is the opposite to what we put here. And what she's going to realise. So we can always develop that further, make it stronger if we want, but I feel it's a good starting point and it's a good resolution as well, because like the one thing I liked about it in particular is the fact it gives us the opportunity as the player to convince her of this so that she realises she can leave, and then her life will be saved when the impending war comes. In the climax of the episode, she will not get killed by the fruits or the reptiles if they invade. If you have convinced her of this truth. If you don't convince her of this truth, then she might get killed off because she'll feel she has to stay here, that she's trapped, and yeah, it's actually it's not safe to be in Lakefall, really. And the whole reason she left was to complete a deal with the fruit. So even though she was outside of town, the reason she was outside was to make sure Lakefall would survive. She wasn't actually out exploring. She was making sure she'd be able to stay in Lakefall forever. That's something to think about too as well, because that's another layer. The big thing that Fiona's actually doing is she has captured a vampire, and the reason she captured the vampire is because she feels that that vampire is a threat to the village. There's going to be wanted posters around, most likely, about Violet's this, Violet's that. It's all propaganda though, because really it's Poppy Papercut who's being an imposter and pretending to be Violet and ruining her reputation, most likely. But that fact that what's going on with the imposter probably isn't going to be revealed to us for a while. We're not going to figure out that straight away. But Violet is definitely a softie deep down, but she's got this bad name, and it's making her out to be more vicious than she really is. So Fiona's probably expecting Violet to be this ferocious, nasty beast that wants to kill everything in sight, like she's being portrayed to be. I don't know how they would have got to that conclusion. We'll have to think when the time comes, but it does make sense they'd be fearful of a vampire, and she is a vampire after all. Rosie's a conflicted character. I mean, Violet's a conflicted character because she's torn between her need and hunger for blood because she's a vampire, and not wanting to do that at all, wanting to be liked and wanting to kind of be understood that she's not a beast. So we know that she's helping the town. And we know that she's making a deal with the fruits because the fruits want Rose. But there might be more layers there. She might be doing it to get her brother out of a mess that he got himself in with the fruits as well. So there's a couple of layers there. There's the whole helping my brother who the fruits are bullying, and helping the village who might be in danger if the fruits don't get what they want. But the fact is, if the fruits got Violet, there'd be more in danger then, but Fiona might not know that. She might not know the fruits' plans to Conga Lake for, you see. She just knows that she needs to give Violet to them if they're going to stop bullying her brother. So that's kind of what we gain so far. It's all very stuff that we've discussed, but it's very rough around the edges at the moment, but we might find out more about that in Main Quest 3. So it does make Fiona seem a little bit less selfishly driven as well, because she is thinking about the village. And I suppose it's because she's got a brother. So yes, let's get more down. Let me review my notes. All right. Everything is keeping me here. We'll just expand on this a bit. I am to give up my love of exploring to run the inn. Okay, interesting stuff. So, whatever this belief here has to be influenced by something, right? Which is going to be this. So I'm trying to imagine little scenarios in my head of what formed this belief in her head now, because beliefs don't come from nowhere, right? They come from somewhere, just like Carol's did. Carol's belief is that she will only find acceptance with her own kind and people can't be trusted, and that's because of this flashback as well as probably some more as well. This is probably just one of a few we'll have, but all of Carol's flashbacks will have made her come to this conclusion. So we got to do that same with Fiona, because this whole formula and template, you know, it all works the same for everybody. A belief in real life, we have our own beliefs, and the reason we have ours, our misbeliefs, is because of stuff that's happened in our past usually. So it's the same for our characters. Now, something like the initial thing I can think of, I don't know what you guys think, but something as simple as Nigel telling her that she has to stay here because he's scared. Just feeling almost manipulated, I guess, that she has to, someone has put it into her head that she has to stay here, and maybe guilt tripped her a bit. The other perspective could be that she's a child and people feel like you should be here because you're young and you can't go out because something will happen to you. After all, the people here are quite fearful because of the massacre and because of things coming to life in the forest. I'd say fear is a key emotion of a lot of people living here. So it would make sense if some of either a brother or some of the other villagers kind of think, no, you shouldn't be leaving because you'll get yourself killed, Fiona, if you leave the village. People have been killed while walking through the forest with all the goings on that have been happening lately. I can imagine that kind of scenario happening with her, and almost like she just feels like she's trapped and she can't do what she wants. It's a relatable thing, you know. It's a very common sort of thing. A lot of people think, feeling trapped, wanting to explore the world, but feeling like obligated and tied down to their responsibilities and what other people want them to do. So that's kind of what's happening with Fiona, with our character. And I think it's quite good. It makes her more interesting. She's not just a spunky little adventurous tomboy, and she's got stuff going on. And that's kind of what all this is about, just really getting those layers down. So let's catch up with chat, because I see there's been lots of awesome things said. Well, maybe her belief is less about feeling trapped and more like Nigel needs me here and it's strictly here. Love and worry for her brother that's keeping her. Yeah. So I guess it depends how you want to portray Fiona, because I see her as a spunky, rebellious little girl with a bit of an attitude. And I don't want to kind of get rid of that like spunk and that little sassy attitude girl personality we've got going. So I don't want to make her too caring and too nice and too like, oh, my brother needs me. But I do think she does have to care about her brother for sure. But maybe she doesn't like get all sappy about it. She's still a tough girl, right? But she does love. She's got love. She's not selfish and she's not narcissistic. She still cares for her older brother. So we can even add that here as well. So Nigel needs me here, because all that connects with her feeling like she needs to run the inn. Nigel needs me here and it's strictly here. Love and worry for a brother that keeps me here. So really, he's a brother. She's not going to not give a damn about him. She doesn't have to be sappy over him, but she doesn't want him hurt. Like anyone would want their sibling hurt if they're not a psychopath, right? So, and we could think about what went on in that backstory of hers to feel this way. It could build a lot of layers into Fiona. We'll have to think about that one. So I just learned that posy doesn't refer to a specific type of flower, but a small bouquet. I always thought posies were flowers as well. That's interesting. And if several flower name people got together and laid down the law, they'd be the posy posse, yeah. And because we got Violet, we've got Poppy. Are there any other flowers in the game? I mean, I know that Pop is a flower because she's impersonating Violet, so she's kind of gone with that name. Whether it was coincidence and it was her birth name, or she just gave herself that alias so that she could be more like Violet, who knows? But maybe the latter, because it feels too much of a coincidence. But yes, and oh, I like your idea, Nigel putting it into her head and guilt tripping her, and the village elders telling her that she has to stay because she's 12. Yeah, I think both of those, like, I feel like having both happen just cements it even more into her head that she's trapped and she's feeling like she has to stay here, because it's not only her brother that's asking her to and guilt tripping her to, but it's the village elders as well. And all the others, so she's kind of like, yeah, they're saying it too, so I can't do anything. It's not just my brother, I'm kind of being forced by the whole village itself. So that's like a double, like, amount of feeling trapped. It's bad enough if it's just one person, but a whole village of people making you feel that way, yeah, that would suck a lot. And for sure, it's definitely a character arc of independence and children kind of being independent as well. So let's get this in. Nigel, put it into my... Well, we got to be careful how we word this, because we can't make her too self-aware that she's been guilt tripped and had things put into her head, right? We gotta write it from the perspective that she believes that yeah, I mean, how you've said it's perfect, but for rewriting it for Fiona, we have to think differently, so we're in her head. So Nigel, we put the timeline at the beginning, so we put 4 months ago for Carol. The reason why I felt 4 months was the perfect amount of time for this event with Carol was because it was before Oliver was born, just a bit before Oliver was born, but old enough, as Carol, she's 6 months old enough for her to have become an adult and formed opinions of her own. Well, would she have become an adult? Because technically, if she was only 2 months old, she'd be very young, because Oliver's 3 months old. Actually, I might need to rethink that timeline and make it a little bit more recent. I'll put 4 months ago. Only because if it was as long as 4 months ago, she might have been a little bit young. But I don't want it to be too recent. Obviously, it can't be too close to the wagon kidnapping. I think she needs to have developed this cynical nature for a while and the majority of her life. I think that's important. But we'll have that there for now. So the timeline, we don't really know what the timeline is, so we won't fill that in yet, but when we get an idea, we'll put it there. So Nigel, how did we... So we said join a seasonal festival in late fall. We don't know the time and place and what's happening in here, so we'll just be very brief for now. We'll say one night Nigel broke down into pieces and told me that he needed me. If anyone's got any ways to make that better or expand on it, feel free to. It made me feel guilty. I often no, it made me feel guilty about how often I go out to explore The wording feels a bit off, but we can always make it sound better, you know, more exciting as in a bit. But we'll just get down our initial thoughts first. So one night, Nigel broke down to pieces and told me he needed me, made me feel guilty about how often I go out to explore. It can be like an emotional moment between the two of them maybe, and who knows if this will be an actual flashback that we see. Either we do it as a flashback or we reveal it in dialogue. It'll be one or the other. We don't know yet. But we can expand on that. Like, this is just a very, very basic summary of what the flashback could involve. But we know that Nigel would have likely been emotional because of the guilt tripping and all that. And then all my life, the village elders of Lakefall have told me that as a child I have to stay in the village no matter what. I must never go out into the forest. Why has that got an underline? It wouldn't make sense without it. All my life, the villagers of Lakefall have told me that I have to stay in the village no matter what because I am a child. Over and over again, they have I want to think of the better word than said. A more emotive word, but I can't think of one right now. Over and again, they said, I must never go into the forest. That only made me more keen. But that only made me more keen. One night Nigel broke down into pieces and told me after being out all day. However, but that didn't stop me. It only made me more keen. One night after being out all day, Nigel broke down into pieces and told me that he needed me and made me feel guilty about how often I go to. But something to that degree, like she's been brought up by the elders to never go out, but it's caused her to have this animal let out of a cage mindset where it's the forbidden fruit. So she sneaks out and has probably spent a lot of her childhood just doing it anyway, being a rebel. And then now Nigel obviously has been feeling really, alone, desperate, because his sister's going out all the time, and he's running the inn on his own. He's probably got PTSD, in all honesty. That I'm honestly thinking that if he was a child, if the war happened 17 years ago, Nigel is of age, of course, because he's a romanceable option. So he was probably a young child or an older child, it depends on his age, when the war happened. He's going to have some bad memories of that. Fiona wasn't born, so she hasn't got all that trauma. So that's really why she has such heaps of confidence, even because she hasn't got that same trauma that her brother has. But he's a war victim. He was a child. He's a war survivor. He probably didn't know fighting because he was too young. Or maybe they tried to make him fight, but he ran off and hid, maybe. That would be pretty bad, wouldn't it, making a child fight? But you never know. They could have felt desperate. And, you know, writing Fiona's backstory here is kind of making us think of more ideas for Nigel, isn't it? So it works. I think it was actually a good idea to get Fiona's information down because we had something to go off with her that worked. And it's making us think of all these possibilities for Nigel now, and it's going to be easier to make them connect together. So yeah, he could have like a form of PTSD from his trauma, the massacre and the war, and it just makes him feel really nervous about running in on his own, and he's just desperate for his sister. Something to that degree. Yeah, Nigel has PTSD and so does Carol. Yes, because Carol, seeing this, like, you would be freaking... That is some trauma. Like, just reading that, I would be like that, you know. That was how I felt reading it. So, Carol... Yeah, and it's affecting them differently, right? Like, Carol's full of anger. Nigel's full of fear. So there's different, they both got it, but their behaviours are different because what they've experienced has made them feel different. And it makes sense because with Carol's flashback, I definitely am feeling more angry. The key emotion for me is anger, reading that. Less, not so much fear. I feel like that's what we got to make sure of, that when we do the scene for this flashback, that anger is the key thing we feel, not so much fear. But with Nigel's story and history, fear should be the emotion, because that's the guy. Look at that face. Zoom in. That's a face of fear. And Carol's our Sunday, so obviously she's the angry one. She has been from the start. And, like, I mean, imagine the differences. Nigel, young boy, forced into war, scared because he's a child. So he ran off, hid under the bed when everybody around him was dying. That would give you a lot of... that would be bad, right? It would have some effect on you. So, of course, having a sister that was free from all that trauma, she was born after the war, she's got far more confidence. She doesn't have all that, so she's far more adventurous, but it's affecting Nigel because he has to suffer with that alone and doesn't have her. So he guilt trips her. She feels bad. She's got that spunk and she's got that sassy attitude. That's not going anywhere, but she still loves her brother, so she's not gonna be mean. She's gonna do what she can to make him feel better, but at the same time she can't resist her lust for exploring. She's still doing it even in the present day because Nigel has give us a quest to find her. Now we've written this though, we might need to amend the dialogue a touch in that scene because we have all this knowledge about the characters now. So that means now we've got all this extra knowledge, we might need to reword that scene so that we can fit in any necessary information that might be happening internally in Nigel's head and reveal that in dialogue when he gives us the quest. So it's all very useful that we're doing this now so that we can make our dialogue super good. Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. Yeah. And so maybe have Nigel's character arc parallel foreshadow the kinds of development that Carol will go through. Yeah, I think that's a good thought, having parallels with Nigel and Carol. And to be honest, like I said a little bit earlier, the one thing I think is key in regards to episode 1 and the NPCs that we get to know in episode 1 is that they link. They have that connection, not necessarily in an external relationship where they're all friends or they all know each other. I mean a connection in how their arcs connect, like the theme, the truth and lesson of each of their stories is parallel to each other. Like Carol and Nigel might have never met really, but they parallel each other in the sort of themes that are going on in the tale, and I think that keeps episode 1 cohesive then and connects it thematically. Like I said, it's not random and all over the place. All our NPCs have got parallels and are teaching us similar things but from different perspectives, like. So it's all very cool. So I'm for that, definitely paralleling our characters. So if you've got any thoughts that come into your head, feel free to say, of course. If there's anything in particular that you think is really key to showing a parallel with them. But this is all really good. It's really exciting. And all of a sudden, Fiona and Nigel have become more interesting, you know. Okay, so now it's figuring out the other stuff. So the belief is influenced by the past. So yeah, obviously she now feels trapped. Everything is keeping me. I have to give up my love of exploring to run the inn. Nigel needs me here. And I think deep down Fiona cares more about what her brother feels than what the village elders feel. I feel like when it comes to village elders, she's just rebellious. Like she's like, screw you, old person. But with Nigel, she's got that connection because he's her sibling. She probably knows what he's been through in the war. I don't know. I could imagine him being very vulnerable because I think Nigel's a very open guy. I think he doesn't really have the pride or ego that Carol has, where she'd hide her feelings. He might be more. He might not be like, you know, he might just tell Fiona about how he felt. I think he's the sort of guy that would be pretty. His feelings, he would wear his heart on his sleeve, right? He's not one of those macho, toxic masculinity guys. So I think that would make him a likeable character. So chances are she knows what he's been through if that's the case, and it only makes her feel even more guilty. And hi Merlin, what kind of document is this? Just googling for a template. Oh, this is my this is Google Docs. This is my own pre-made template. I spent a few hours last night putting it together. So yeah, it's pretty cool, isn't it? It's pretty now. It was very plain and boring at first, but I've put all the emojis there and made it quite nice to look at, and I've colour coded it as well. And we're going to do the colour coding with Fiona and Nigel too, because I think that's really handy, giving each behaviour a colour and then highlighting with that colour the matching behaviour. So are we spotting any behaviours of Fiona here from this? Because we can start filling in the behaviours and highlighting them. Let's think. But that didn't stop me. That's definitely a behaviour. Let's give that. What colour should we give that one? Orange, because orange is a spunky colour, I think. So, but that didn't stop me. It only made me more keen. That could be another colour as well. So I'm seeing two behaviours from this. This orange one here is rebellious, and the red one is passionate. Are you with me, chat? Do you agree, or are you seeing something else? So first I'm going to put a rebellious nature, and red would be passionate. can expand on that or reword it if we think there's a more appropriate word. But they go hand in hand, you know. That could also be rebellious, but I feel like the fact that we says it makes her more keen shows like a real passion for the fact that she loves to explore. And how great would it be if, like, the end of a character arc was her having some amazing, like, job or sort of life, sort of hobby, where she explores for a living. Someone says that she's the one who rides the airship, if we get an airship at the end of the game. I don't know if we will, because I don't know if we were a traditional enough old school Final Fantasy to have the airship, because our maps, we might not have the traditional world map, but it all depends, because we are going to have a fast travel method, so we might not necessarily need an airship in our game unless there's a purpose to have one and it's part of the story. But I feel like it would be cool to do something similar where she gets this really cool role in the story if she does leave Lakeful. Because if her resolution is leaving Lakeful, we are gonna meet her later on, I'd say, because she'll have left and there's a chance for her to pop up in the future. Of course, if it ends with her getting killed, then we won't meet her again. But I think that's the thing about a branching story. Some branches will potentially end with characters getting killed off, and other branches will end with them having a future role, even if it's just a minor role, because you know, we can't make the ones that get killed off this early on into fully fledged major characters, but they can still pop up and have an appearance, I guess. I mean, we could make them into major characters, but it would be a lot of work, I suppose, if we had to do that many branches. But okay, the page you're on, is that something we can pull up? If not, could you post screenshots of Carol, Nigel and Fiona's sections? Yeah, I think that'd be a cool thing to do, Zexy. I think I want to at least make this a read-only document for you guys, so I should share the link, shouldn't I? Let me see if I can do that the same as I did for the spreadsheet. So copy links, I think I've done it. Let's see, let's put it into here. Alright, Rain, gotta bounce back to Vagabond Land to do some dev work. Yeah, good luck with that, Vagabond. I hope it goes well and enjoy your being back to the game dev world after your break. It's awesome to be back into it, isn't it? Because I think December can be a very distracting month in general for us all, naturally. Okay, so here is the big character ARCS list I have made that we'll be using in the future to develop our characters. Feel free to have a peek if you want to see what they are building into at the moment, or how they are shaping at the moment. If you want to see how they are shaping up, we don't have to get fussy. There we go. So hopefully this will work. Let me know if that works okay for you folks. It should be a read only, just like the other one was. Let me know if it's not read only, folks. We don't want it to get trashed. I would cry. I think I'm going to double check, but I'm pretty sure it was a read only one I shared. Anyone on the internet with this link can view. Yeah, so just view, not edit. Cool. There we go. I was being a bit silly with the airship suggestion. No, I guess we need to get the airship get in the air somehow. That is a true point, the Sky City. Now, I mean, airship would be the obvious reason to get there unless there's some other way. But, you know, there could be a narrative reason for having an airship, and I think I'm more inclined to introduce an airship to the game if there is a narrative reason to have it. And that could definitely be one that works. And it's not silly because a lot of RPGs do it. Well, yeah, Raindrop Chronicles for sure. It's kind of a mix between a retro RPG but a modern RPG as well. It's kind of taking elements of both. I guess in a way I want it to kind of be quite open. So, in the way that some MMOs are, like Final Fantasy XIV, that you can freely explore different zones and areas without going into a mini world map like your traditional RPG Final Fantasies, like where you're massive and the buildings are tiny. But yes, and character sheet link works, yay! And do you mind if I use the same structure you have in the doc if I to build my own characters? Feel free to, madam. To be honest, you know, that's to be expected when I'm sharing my stuff, so use it as a guide for your own work if it helps. Like, you know, it's flattering if you guys find it inspirational enough to copy, because this whole formula I'm doing is influenced by other people as well. I'm influenced by this book here, and there's a few other articles I've read. So that this and a few other things I've been reading has been what has helped me form this template. You know, I haven't like done it completely off my own back, but see, if she worked at a place that sold tickets for travel, her name would still reflect her job, even though it's more exciting. Yeah, that's true, Bookington. Yeah, and if you have any ideas, like, feel free to throw them in the ideas discussion channel, even weeks down the road, even if it's not relevant. If something ever springs to mind about any of these characters we're writing about, you know, this will be constantly updated as well as this here. Because I think we're doing pretty well here for Carol so far, but you never know, we could want to mould it or alter a couple of things if we feel, you know, it's necessary. But it's definitely a good starting point for her for sure. But like Zexy says, we could end up having a few beliefs that connect to each other, considering this is a series. But I definitely feel this belief here is like the overarching belief that will probably take Carol to the end of the series, because it's such a like ingrained one. Like something like that, a thought like that isn't going to change overnight, and it certainly won't. Her mind certainly won't be realizing the opposite of this by as early as episode 1's ending. It's a journey. So something like this, true for Carol, is like endgame stuff. But like we says, there's potential multiple outcomes, because Carol herself will probably have 3 or so different endings, maybe with little intricacies each of those endings as well. So we could end up having multiple truths that they come to, depending on how you formed your hero. But this is definitely a good universal truth for you know, your traditional good hero. If you play as a hero that does the right thing most of the time, I'd say that this will go with that sort of truth for each of our characters first. So whatever we fill in on the truth section for them, we'll see it from the perspective of a hero that is a good influence and does the right thing. And if we want to think of it from an evil perspective or a roguish hero, we'll put another truth in that they might come to then, potentially. But you know, the hero doesn't have the power to change every single NPC's truth. Nobody's that influential, but I'd say, you know, the hero could have a great impact on the people's lives that he meets. It all depends. I'll be bugging you with some character suggestions in Discord. Yeah, just for, even if you guys come up with anything to add to the mega list, like any like really cool fears, and cause we could definitely do with a bit more, especially on the dissatisfactions and fears and even quest ideas. You know, we could do with filling that out further. I was nearly going to spend another day doing that mega list with you today, chat, to just expand on a few of the, because we've only got 65 of these, for example. But then I thought, now we do have to move on and work on this section now. But I'll still potentially add some if any of you come up with any good ones. So we've had some really good chats. We've talked about Fiona, and we're even fleshing out Nigel at the same time while writing her backstory. And I'm just like at the moment highlighting certain behaviours I'm seeing. So I figured out she's passionate and has a rebellious nature. What else could there be here? Nigel broke down to pieces and told me that he needed me. It made me feel guilty about how often right, so one I'm spotting here, let's get that in. He needed me. So others are dependent on them, or they have someone who is dependent on them. Has someone who is dependent on them. So now I don't know if that's classed as a behaviour, so I might need to reword it a bit, but I did notice that the whole he needed me bit just shows that she's kind of useful, right? People sort of rely on her because she's probably very able for her age. I mean, if she's an innkeeper, I assume that Nigel took over the inn after his parents passed, perhaps. Now, we know that the parents didn't die from the war because otherwise Fiona wouldn't have been born, but they did die at a later date for some reason. And I imagine Nigel was the one who, as the older brother, it would naturally have gone to him, but Fiona probably took over because he wasn't capable of being a manager or a boss. She's just more capable, but it's not her passion. She's not really passionate about the inn. She's only there out of obligation. The one who, which would make her parallel really well with the blacksmith if we make him the guy who takes his job seriously and really cares about it being perfect, right? That him and Fiona would parallel them, because she's like, well, not so much parallel, but they're contrasting character arcs, right? They're polar opposites of each other. So and I'm glad you decided to move on. I feel like there was some very good progress made. Yeah, for sure. Like, sometimes I like to spend, I thought, it's worth spending the whole week on this, which we did last week, because I thought, but for sure there was a lot to talk about today with this, so. And I feel like for sure we've had some very constructive chats. Made me feel guilty about how often I go out to explore. So what behaviour is that made me feel guilty? A good heart. A good heart. We might be able to make these a bit more descriptive and better when we get more of an understanding, but that'll do for now. But I feel like that sums her up well. Good heart, I'm trapped. Everything is keeping me here. I have to give up my love of exploring to run the inn. Nigel needs me here. Now, I'm trying to think of actual specific behaviours here, because I feel like I'm putting traits down instead of behaviours. Like Carol's were good, because there were things like, cynical outlook, being impatient, being bossy. I mean, traits and behaviours are the same, aren't they, to a certain degree, but I'm thinking something that can be revealed through dialogue and personality when we meet them. Things like that are outwardly external behaviours. So that way, when we reveal these outward external behaviours through dialogue and in scenes, it's all going to make sense why they are that person when we find out about their past and what's going on in their head. But yeah, we could fill this in a bit more. There's definitely more to fill in here. We can talk about raising the stakes with her and Nigel like we did about Carol too. And there's a lot to fill in for Nigel too. And we had plenty of ideas with ones for Nigel from beliefs particularly. I think what we'll end up going with is whatever fits best with all this. And the fact that we've talked about him having PTSD now as well, and potentially being a like someone who was scared of fighting in the war and hid, and kind of makes sense with his cowardly nature. And the fact that he's so fearful and he's so reliant on Fiona, his little sister. So something that really connects with that past of Nigel will be best for the belief that we go for. So I'll look through them all, and there'll be might be one that resonates more strongly than others depending on that backstory. So I might do a bit of filling in on this between now and next stream, everybody. I'm like, expect when we return on Wednesday for a bit more info to be filled in here. Either on Wednesday we'll be carrying on with this and just concluding Fiona and Nigel's sections. We might even move on to Violet. In fact, it's probably wise we move on to Violet, because Violet is so important and so key in main quest 1 and 2 that it only makes sense that we get to understand her better, so that she's all her dialogue and, well, you know, all her actions, and it's all consistent with what happens in main quest 1 and 2. And as for the fruits, I don't know if we need to do the fruits as individuals on this sheet, but we could do them as a group. I haven't decided yet, because it is a lot of work to do one of these for a character, but the fruits are pretty important, and I'm wondering whether it's worthwhile to do this for the individual fruits. But at the minimum, we'll do them as a group, and you know, because some of the fruits are very like-minded, you know, it's like they're more of a community, they're the same, but they are individual people, but they do tend to have the same like sort of goals and desires, apart from Apple's a bit different. So that's what I'm wondering about at the moment. So we'll consistently have this sheet to really flesh out our characters. I feel it's the best thing. It's easier to do it on this than it is to do in Draw.io for things like this. Draw.io is perfect for the flows, the dialogue trees, but for any like real in-depth things like this, the docs is better. And for lists, the Google Sheets is great. Alright, so yeah, the rest of the week we might be doing a mix of this and more dialogue. I know that we do need to conclude the final quest, which we did outline a few streams ago. We did outline that last quest of the last scene of that quest, and we will be returning to that very soon. So it's kind of going to be a mixture of finishing this for Carol, Fiona, Nigel, Violet, the fruits. Those are the only NPCs we've got so far in the present day. So we'll be, once the fruits are done, we're done for now. But then when we start main quest 3 content, which will be after the first playable build's released, we're going to have a ton of more NPCs to make together, because we'll be working on populating Lakefall together, everybody. So that the populating of Lakefall's not going to be done until the second playable build, which I'm planning that will be released more around the summertime probably, because I'm really going to release playable builds seasonally. And as for the reptile NPCs, they're going to be we're gonna make them and implement them once we've done the cave dungeon, which is going to be the third playable build. So yes, they will come after the Lightfall NPCs, but I can see us having some ideas, some very rough ideas on NPC types that we might have, but we won't fully flesh them out until the time is right. But yeah, it's all about Carol, the brother and sister, Violet and the Fruits for now, because they're our key characters in Main Quest 1 and 2. So it's up to us to make them as good as they can be so that they shine in the opening 2 main quests of episode 1. Because we might look through the dialogue and realise there needs to be a few adjustments and expansions. I know for sure that cabin scene with Fiona will be having a rehaul, because at present she's kind of like behaving a bit not like the Fiona we want. But so yeah, there's still quite a bit of work to do with the dialogue, but it's going to be worth it, because all this is going to just make it so much better, all this thorough analysing and development. And Main Quest 3 is getting from Lightfall to the Lizard Cave and getting in, or is it less or more, or do we not know yet? We sort of have a very brief outline of what's going to be involved, but of course all the intricacies and details and awesome things that happen in the quests have not been written yet. But I'd say the summary of Main Quest 3 is that we return to Lightfall and we try to find out from the Lightfall villagers who this person in the painting is that Violet has painted. So finding information about the reptiles, we'll be going around investigating. Obviously we'll have the choice of whether we want to hide Violet in Carol or just bluntly walk through this town with her. We'll probably have that choice. We'll have the option to recruit either the diplomat or the herbalist, and we can talk to each of them and make our minds up probably. And it might be a time where we have a bit of downtime actually, because we'll have just fought a boss with the Fruits. Things were very high tension because we'd have had the choice of killing them or letting them live. So I can see that being a bit of downtime for us as we return and we kind of chill out. There might be a few options of some character interactions with the hero and Carol as well before we go off and explore the caves. So I see Main Quest 3 as the downtime quest and returning to Lightfall quest, and Main Quest 4 will be the cave quest, where we're actually, I think the conclusion of Main Quest 3 will be heading to the caves, whereas Main Quest 4 will be the actual exploring of the caves. So yeah, Main Quest 3 Lakefall downtime and heading to the caves. Main Quest 4 going in the caves. And then Main Quest 5 I see as the big climatic event of realising that the reptiles are wanting to take back Lakefall, and it's all that, the massive high stakes and the battle and you deciding how you're going to handle that, all that chaos. And then Main Quest 6 will be the sort of resolution and the aftermath of that fight, and you'll see who's populating the town, and there'll be a bit of downtime again, but it will also lead into the plot that's going to take us into Main Quest 2 as well, and everything will connect and flow so that we're sort of ready to face Main Quest, the episode 2, and all excited about it, potential cliffhangers and new plot points coming to us that take us to that farm and all that kind of thing. So really, which I talked about this before we end, I'll just give a quick summary. Last stream I did for a little while talk about what the plans of 2021 were, and to sum it up, I'd say 2021 is the year of the main quest for episode 1. It's all going to be about, if you look at our Trello page, folks, you'll see that I've listed the first 4 playable pre-alpha builds will be all main quest stuff. So first playable build is Main Quest 1 and 2. Next playable build will add another quest, and then another quest, with each playable build. So anything in regards to side quests and features and all the extra stuff that makes games exciting, all that will only get added when the main quest stuff is complete, so that I don't put too much on my shoulders. It's all about getting that main quest linear story implemented first of all. That's going to be our pre-alpha content basically, and then on top of that, once we're happy with that and I feel like this is really strong now, this main quest is amazing and I'm really happy because it's all done and it's all in there and it's all working, at that point in time I'll feel like we'll be ready to add features, and by features I mean things like any extra systems that we want that make it an RPG, such as hunts, side quests. But like I say, with my side quests I want them to be very lore driven, like very meaningful stuff that makes us find out more about the people that live in Lakefall and the caves, that enhance the character development and lore further. And I think it's cool that side quests are going to be focused on after the main quest, because by the time we work on those, we'll be experts at the world and we'll know everything like the back of our hands, and it'll help us make the best and most inspiring side quests possible, and little mini side quest stories, because we'll have got to really understand the characters and world over the year of like building the main quest together, won't we? So yeah, 2021 is the year of the main quest of episode 1 for sure. And looking at our Trello estimated dates timeline, that's kind of how it is at the moment. I think we said the 4th playable build could be released in the winter this year, and that would have the main quest 5 and 6 in it, the winter playable build will, if we stick on the seasonal date release, if everything works and goes okay. Finally got stuff mostly caught up. So what did I miss today since I was mostly alert? Well, we've been working on this big character arcs list, Van. So it's this template that I've formed with the desires and fears from the mega list, and it's all about assigning a belief, desire, fear, etc. to each of our characters. So we've got Carol here, Nigel here, Fiona here, and we're sort of filling them in, and we've got a section. I've shared it actually in the ideas discussion channel, so if you want to have a closer look, it's there as a read-only document, so it's probably easier for me to send you there than explain it all thoroughly. But this will be something we work on for all our NPCs. It's over time going to be a massive list where we sort of just brainstorm and get our heads together with the characters, like a big character outline section basically. It's a little bit easier to do this in Google Doc rather than Draw.io because it's very text heavy, and it's a lot easier to just highlight things and get thoughts down. And eventually the Lore Bible profiles will be expanded on with details such as this as well, most likely. But we're still setting them in stone just yet. And we've kind of talked a bit about Fiona and Nigel today as well. We've sort of got a little bit of a past for both the brother and sister in here, and it might seem like Nigel has PTSD. And there's a lot of stuff, a lot of fear in that boy's mind, understandably so, with the war and everything, because he'd have been quite young when that war happened, and Fiona wouldn't have been born, so that explains why he's the scared one and she's not. And we sort of getting her character arc formed a little bit as well, so feel free to have a read, but there's definitely stuff we've got to expand on there. There's missing fears and desires and all that, but they've all got a link basically, so whatever does go in here for Fiona will very much be influenced by what we've put above, because it all flows one after the other. It starts with the past. The belief here is influenced by the past, the desire is influenced by the belief, the fears, what affects the desire because it's an obstacle to the desire, and the reason they're dissatisfied is influenced by the fear, and that's the solution to the fear. So it all each little thing connects and flows well, and that's kind of the purpose. I think Carol's is the most complete, so feel free to read hers. We've even put in some ideas for future plot points here. That's anything that raises the tension and makes them have to challenge their fears. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, we'll be carrying on with all this week. So expect us to really focus on the goal is to get Carol, Fiona, Nigel, Violet and the fruits done. They're the characters we're only focusing on right now in terms of this sort of depth, because they're the ones in the game. They're the ones in main quest 1 and 2. So every time we add a new quest and develop a quest, any characters that appear in that quest will be added to this document, and we'll work on understanding them a bit better. Shall do that. By features you mean mini games and microtransactions. Yeah, I mean, with things like features and being a solo developer, it's not like I'm going to be working on making the next MMO, because that's not going to happen. But I am very interested in making the game as good as it can be, but I'd rather focus on that side of things, like any collectibles or crafting or anything to that degree would be thought of more once the base is already there, the main quest, because it's just a lot to think about when you haven't even got that down yet, and it's a lot of stuff going on in your brain all at once. So it's about taking one little step at a time. Otherwise you end up with a bug-fested mess as well. You risk having a buggy, messy game if you're putting too many separate elements in too short of a time period. So that's what each build is. Every new build will have a little bit a bit of extra main quest added, and then once that allows us to test each quest at a time as well. And by the time main quest 6 is released and that build, it's like the main quest will hopefully be happy with it and it all works great, and it'll be at the perfect point then to add the extra stuff, because everything else, the base is already there and it's only just improving upon what we've already got. But as for features, I like the idea of like inserting little details into the world, like lore, explorable bits as well. So that also involves that, like reading news clippings, reading books, looting objects, and all the things that make an RPG an RPG. And I know that's kind of a bit more Western inspired, but I kind of like that as well, especially because this is such a lore-rich game. I love the idea of having little things scattered about the world that you can interact with. So that's one feature that, other than the romance feature and the whole friendship affinity feature, I'm kind of very keen on adding those little touches to the game as well. But something like that's an example of something that would be added afterwards as well in a later build, once the main quest is already there and down. 50 steps for $1, yeah. So yeah, I see this big character arcs list really as a way of us really getting to know our characters and getting their heads a bit better, because all this stuff, all these things are really that real internal stuff that's going on in your head that makes a person and feel real and alive. Without that, you've just got a cardboard cutout, and it just makes them so. I mean, I'm already really into Fiona and Nigel so much more just from writing this little bit, and we're in the early days here. We could go all out and expand on this more. We haven't even filled in the rest of Fiona's yet, so there's so much more to go. We're just beginning, and we started on Fiona because we had more of an idea for her. We was a little bit blank on Nigel because we had many ways to take him, so we started on Fiona first because we already knew that we had an interesting resolution for her. But just writing Fiona's made us get some really cool ideas for Nigel that I think is key, so it's helped a bunch. And Nigel is already paralleling with Carol quite well, which is good, because a goal is to make all the NPCs connect and parallel with each other with the theme and the moral of their stories, right? And episode 1's key overarching theme of the whole roots and rumours kind of needs to be there with everybody to some degree that's a key character in this episode, or just exclusive to episode 1. Okay, so I'm going to send us over to a friend now, everyone. I have been rambling for so long, and I should have ended stream so long ago. I don't know. We haven't even had time to do trivia because I've been going over time and rushing, but we will get back into it when we start finishing on time. But today I'm going to send us over to... I'll send us to Vagabond Dog today, seeing as it's his first stream back. And he was with us earlier. Right, Vagabond Dog. Hopefully my VOD is all in one piece after the disconnection earlier. I've got my fingers crossed. We'll see. Hopefully that never happens again. Right, thanks for hanging out, everyone. I've had a super fun stream, and this week we'll be carrying on just doing this with the characters I mentioned, the ones in Main Quest 1 and 2, for the purpose of being able to understand them better so that we can write the best Main Quest 1 and 2 scene possible. Because as someone very interestingly told me last stream, CD Projekt Red, when they make a quest, it's always awful at first and they remake it over and over until it's great, and that's what we're doing and have been doing for a few weeks. We've been making Main Quest 1 and 2 as perfect as they can be. And this is one step to doing that, getting to understand your characters. So we'll be carrying on with that, folks. Thanks for hanging out with us today, and I will see you all on Wednesday. Have an awesome evening, and if anyone has any ideas, put them in the ideas discussion channel. If you've got any ideas to go on our mega list, or any thoughts about the characters we've talked about today, feel free to say. See you Wednesday, everyone. Bye bye.